3 hours from now, you may begin to question everything you thought you knew about human history. Buried beneath deserts, locked inside jungles, and carved into unforgiving stone are relics that defy easy explanation, structures aligned with impossible precision, symbols etched by unknown hands, and artifacts that seem to whisper of knowledge far ahead of their time. Civilizations we call ancient, left behind puzzles we still struggle to decode. How did they build these wonders? What did they truly understand about the world and the sky above it? Tonight, we step into the shadows of the past and confront the mysteries humanity has yet to grasp. Nestled on the gentle banks of the Melendez River in the Cappadocia region of what is now central Turkey, Aşıklı Höyük rises subtly from the landscape, a modest mound of earth that, at first glance, could be mistaken for nothing more than a weathered hill. But beneath its quiet, unassuming surface lies a remarkable window into human history, stretching back nearly 12,000 years, to a time when the world itself was awakening from the last ice age. As the morning light brushes over the terraces and excavated remnants, one cannot help but feel the presence of countless lives that once thrived here, shaping the earliest forms of settled life in Anatolia. Archaeologists have meticulously uncovered layers of habitation, revealing clusters of stone-built houses, some circular, some oval, their foundations etched into the soil as if whispering the rhythm of ancient domestic life. Hearths, carefully maintained, suggest a community attuned to both survival and ritual. Tools fashioned from obsidian glint, faintly in the light. Blades, scrapers, and points that hint at skill and purpose far beyond simple necessity. Yet, even among these tangible discoveries, questions linger. How did a society this early organize itself? How much of their daily routine was governed by practical survival, and how much by beliefs we may never fully grasp? Perhaps most compelling are the human remains, burials that offer a glimpse into the spiritual life of the settlement. Some skeletons are found carefully positioned beneath floors, encased in stone or clay. These burials speak of ritual, of reverence, of practices we can document but scarcely understand. Why were certain individuals interred in particular ways? And why do some graves contain what appear to be deliberate arrangements of stones or animal bones, hinting at symbolic acts whose meanings have slipped through the cracks of time? The artifacts themselves sometimes confound expectations. Among the many tools, fragments of figurines emerge, representing humans in abstract, stylized forms. They evoke questions about early notions of identity, spirituality, and perhaps even storytelling. Some scholars suggest these may have been objects of worship or talismans, connecting the people of Aşıklı Höyük to forces unseen. Others wonder whether their purpose was entirely practical, a reflection of social status or craft specialization. Regardless, the enigmatic shapes invite us to imagine a culture that, while separated from us by millennia, was acutely aware of its place in the world and the mysteries that surrounded it. Intriguingly, recent analyses of the settlement's architecture reveal an unexpected level of sophistication. Houses were sometimes built with multiple rooms and shared walls, suggesting a communal understanding of space and resource management. Could this represent one of the earliest experiments in organized community living? And yet, despite the impressive planning, there remain anomalies. Foundations that seem abandoned mid-construction, unusual pit structures, and layers of ash whose origins remain uncertain. What events prompted these interruptions? Environmental pressures, social upheaval, or practices we have yet to interpret? Even the landscape around Aşıklı Höyük fuels speculation. Its proximity to the volcanic terrain of Cappadocia may have offered fertile soil and strategic advantage, yet it also posed dangers. The river, the hills, and the distant volcanic peaks created both opportunity and challenge, shaping human activity in ways that science can trace, but not fully explain. How did these early settlers perceive the land? Did they view it as a resource, a partner, a threat, or something more mystical altogether? As we walk among the carefully excavated remains, it becomes clear that Aşıklı Höyük is more than an archaeological site. It is a silent testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and curiosity. And yet, for all that has been uncovered, so much remains shrouded in uncertainty. Who exactly were the people who called this place home? What stories did they tell? And which truths have the centuries kept hidden? The mound holds its secrets with patience, inviting each observer to ponder what lies beneath, and to wonder what other mysteries of early human life remain just beyond our reach. As the echoes of Anatolia fade behind us, we turn our gaze northward, across the rolling hills of northeastern Scotland, where Dunnideer Hillfort crowns a modest rise with quiet authority. From afar it seems almost ordinary, a grassy knoll punctuated by the remains of stone ramparts, but up close, the site reveals layers of history that whisper of human ambition and mystery. Here, in the midst of open countryside, our ancestors etched their presence into the landscape, leaving behind a structure that has puzzled archaeologists for generations. Dunnideer's circular enclosure, defined by thick, dry stone walls, commands the surrounding vistas. Every approach to the hill fort was carefully considered, the contours of the land shaping entrances and defensive positions with deliberate precision. Some walls are remarkably well preserved, their construction suggesting expertise and planning, a clear statement of human intention in a time when survival was never guaranteed. Yet the reasons for its construction are far from settled. Was Dunnideer purely a defensive stronghold, guarding local populations against raiders, or did it serve a more complex social or ceremonial purpose? Excavations have revealed evidence of occupation dating back to the Iron Age, yet the story is far from complete. Within the enclosure, remnants of hearths, pottery shards, and post holes hint at daily life, but they also leave gaps. Why do some areas appear densely utilized while others seem conspicuously empty? And what significance, if any, might the unusual placement of certain stones have held for the builders? Scholars suggest possibilities, markers of social hierarchy, ritual boundaries, or even astronomical alignments, but certainty remains elusive. The surrounding landscape adds layers of intrigue. From the summit, one can see other nearby earthworks, mounds, and natural landmarks that may have held symbolic meaning. Some researchers propose that Dunnideer was not an isolated construction, but part of a broader network of sites connected by trade, kinship, or spiritual tradition. Others suggest more speculative ideas. Could the hill fort have served as a center for astronomical observation, its walls and gateways aligned to track the movements of the sun or moon? Or were these alignments accidental, products of the hill's natural contours rather than human design? Artifacts uncovered at Dunnideer deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. Simple tools, fragments of iron, and pottery hint at daily subsistence, yet occasional anomalies provoke more questions than answers. A carved stone, its patterns faint and worn, resists clear interpretation. Was it symbolic, decorative, or functional? And what drove a community to invest so much labor into a site that, by our measures, seems remote and exposed? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, as if the hill itself guards its secrets with deliberate care. Even the name Dunnideer holds a subtle echo of the unknown. Derived from Gaelic, it loosely translates to fort on the hill, yet the origin of the word and the stories embedded in local memory hint at a deeper connection between people and place. Oral traditions, fragmentary and sometimes contradictory, suggest rituals, gatherings, and perhaps even mysteries that were never recorded in stone or soil. How much of the hill fort's significance has been lost to time, and how much remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered? Walking the grassy terraces today, it is easy to feel the pulse of history beneath each step. Dunnideer Hillfort is not merely a ruin, it is a puzzle, a silent witness to human ambition, adaptation, and imagination. The more we study it, the more the questions multiply. Who exactly built it, and why? How did its purpose evolve over centuries? And, most tantalizingly, what secrets still linger beneath the stones, whispering to those willing to listen? As the wind sweeps across the hilltop, one is left with a profound sense that some mysteries, like Dunnideer itself, are meant to endure, inviting contemplation and wonder across the ages. As we leave the windswept hills of Scotland behind, our journey carries us back to the Anatolian plains, to a settlement that once thrived more than 9,000 years ago, Çatalhöyük. From above, the site appears as a sprawling, almost abstract mosaic of mud brick rooftops, packed tightly together like pieces of a puzzle. There are no streets, no alleys, only an intricate network of interconnected roofs, climbed and traversed by those who lived here in a rhythm very different from our own. Even today, this dense labyrinth evokes a sense of human ingenuity, of a society that defied conventional urban planning and, in doing so, left questions that continue to perplex us. Excavations at Çatalhöyük reveal hundreds of homes, each strikingly similar in shape and size, yet each containing subtle variations that hint at personal expression. Inside, walls are adorned with murals depicting animals, geometric patterns, and enigmatic motifs whose meanings elude modern interpretation. The floors hold hearths, storage bins, and traces of daily activity, remnants of a community deeply entwined with the land they cultivated and the animals they revered. Yet, despite decades of study, much remains uncertain. Why did the residents choose to live in such a densely packed arrangement, entering and exiting primarily through the roofs? Was it practical, a response to environmental pressures, or did it hold symbolic or ritual significance that has been lost to time? Perhaps most compelling are the burials found within the settlement itself. Unlike many ancient societies that separated the dead from the living, Çatalhöyük inhabitants interred their dead beneath the floors of their homes. Skulls were sometimes removed, plastered, and painted, preserving faces long gone, a striking gesture that suggests reverence, remembrance, or perhaps beliefs in ancestral presence and protection. What did these acts mean to the people themselves? Were these expressions of spirituality, social status, or something far more profound that we can scarcely imagine? Artifacts from the site deepen the sense of mystery. Obsidian tools, beads, figurines, and clay models hint at ritual, commerce, and creativity, yet their precise roles remain speculative. Some figurines, especially the so-called mother goddess figures, have been interpreted as symbols of fertility or spiritual guardianship, though alternative readings suggest they could represent ancestral veneration, communal identity, or even abstract storytelling. How much of Çatalhöyük's culture can we truly decipher through these remnants, and how much remains deliberately obscured by time? The settlement itself interacts with the natural environment in ways that raise further questions. Nestled on a fertile plain between rivers, Çatalhöyük's people exploited the richness of the land while shaping it for agriculture and animal husbandry. Some researchers have suggested that certain building alignments and murals correspond to celestial movements, though the evidence is debated. Did the inhabitants possess an early form of astronomical knowledge, embedding it into the very fabric of their homes? Or are we projecting our own search for patterns onto a society whose worldview may have been entirely different? Even the sheer scale of the site is striking. Çatalhöyük was home to thousands of people, yet it lacked streets, fortifications, or obvious central governance. How did social cohesion function in such a dense environment? Was order maintained through ritual, kinship, or unrecorded forms of authority? And how did this intricate, crowded settlement eventually decline, leaving behind only the muted echoes preserved in clay and stone? Walking through the reconstructed streets, imagining the lives of its ancient inhabitants, it is impossible not to feel a mixture of awe and humility. Çatalhöyük is not merely a collection of ruins. It is a testament to human creativity, resilience, and complexity at a moment when the world itself was changing. And yet, for all we have uncovered, many mysteries remain. What stories, beliefs, and knowledge were carried across its rooftops and through its labyrinthine homes, only to vanish with the passage of time? The settlement invites us to wonder, not only about the people who lived there, but about the countless insights still hidden beneath layers of earth, waiting for discovery. As the mist drifts across the rolling fields of Brittany, the Kercado passage grave rises from the earth like a silent sentinel of a forgotten time. Moss and lichen cling to its ancient stones, worn smooth by millennia of wind and rain. At first glance, it seems almost unremarkable, a low mound of earth punctuated by the rough-hewn entrance of a megalithic tomb. But as one draws closer, the deliberate precision of the construction becomes impossible to ignore. The massive stones, some weighing several tons, have been arranged to form a narrow passage leading to a central chamber, its roof constructed from enormous capstones that have defied gravity and decay alike. How did the builders, living thousands of years ago without metal tools or modern machinery, manage to transport and position these monumental rocks with such skill? Archaeologists date Kercado to around 4,700 BCE, placing it firmly within the Neolithic period, a time when farming communities were beginning to shape the landscape and develop complex social structures. Excavations have revealed traces of human burials, accompanied by pottery, flint tools, and fragments of polished stone axes. These finds suggest that Kercado, like other passage graves scattered across Western Europe, was more than just a tomb. It was a sacred space, perhaps a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where rituals unfolded in ways we can only glimpse through the remnants left behind. Yet the passage itself holds enigmas that challenge even the most seasoned researchers. The alignment of the tomb, for instance, appears to correspond with certain celestial events, catching the first light of the winter solstice in a narrow beam that illuminates the inner chamber. Was this a simple practical marker, a calendar for the seasons, or something more? An intentional link between human life, death, and the movements of the heavens? The precision of this alignment hints at a knowledge of astronomy that some might argue is surprisingly sophisticated for a society still in the early stages of agricultural development. Inside the chamber, the air is cool and heavy, almost carrying the weight of centuries. The stones themselves seem to whisper stories of rituals long forgotten, of hands that shaped them, of bodies that rested beneath them. Some researchers have noted unusual marks on certain stones, grooves and indentations that could be the result of practical work, but others speculate they might indicate symbolic carvings, messages from a culture whose language has vanished entirely. Could these be signs of a deeper understanding, an encoded message meant only for those initiated into the mysteries of the passage grave? Over the years, fringe theories have emerged around sites like Kercado, some suggesting that megalithic builders possessed knowledge lost to modern humanity, or that these tombs were designed with energy or acoustic properties that we barely comprehend. Experiments with sound in similar passage graves have shown that the chambers can amplify certain frequencies, creating an almost hypnotic resonance. Did the Neolithic people intend this effect, or is it a curious byproduct of their construction techniques? And if they did, for what purpose? Healing, meditation, communication with the dead? The questions linger because the evidence, while tantalizing, is always partial. Fragments of a narrative we can only try to reconstruct. As one stands before Kercado Passage Grave today, it is easy to feel a profound sense of both awe and humility. The stones endure, silent yet insistent, testifying to human ingenuity and a deep, enduring desire to connect with something beyond the immediate, tangible world. The passage invites us to step into the past, to imagine the lives of those who walked here, who labored to create this monument, and who saw in it a reflection of the cosmos, of life, of death. And yet, despite all we have learned, despite the meticulous work of generations of archaeologists, the full story of Kercado remains elusive. What secrets linger within the stones, patiently waiting for the eyes and minds of the living to perceive them? And perhaps more intriguingly, what might we never know at all? From the rolling hills of Asturias in northern Spain, the remains of Castro de Coaña emerge like a faint echo of an ancient civilization. Perched atop a strategic hill, the settlement spreads across a landscape of meadows and wooded slopes, its stone foundations barely rising above the grass, yet hinting at a once thriving community. Paths of worn stones trace the outlines of circular and oval dwellings, their walls long vanished, leaving only the memory of human hands that shaped this place. Even today, the wind carries whispers through the remnants of defensive ramparts, inviting those who visit to imagine what life might have been like here more than 2 millennia ago. Castro de Coaña, dating back to the late Iron Age, belonged to the Castro culture, a network of fortified settlements scattered throughout the northwestern Iberian Peninsula. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of complex urban planning, concentric walls, carefully arranged homes and communal spaces. Pottery fragments, iron tools, and ornamental objects suggest a society that valued both practicality and artistry. Yet the more we learn, the more questions arise. How did these communities sustain themselves in such rugged terrain? What social or spiritual structures guided their daily lives, their alliances, and their conflicts? The strategic position of Castro de Coaña, overlooking fertile valleys and controlling nearby river routes, hints at a settlement built with defense and observation in mind. The fortifications, though modest compared to later medieval castles, speak to a society attuned to both the land and potential threats. But beyond the practical, there are hints of something less tangible, features whose purpose remains unclear. Certain stone arrangements appear almost ceremonial, aligned in ways that defy simple explanation. Were these spaces for ritual gatherings, astronomical observation, or symbolic statements meant to assert power and identity? The evidence is tantalizing yet incomplete. Among the artifacts recovered, some objects raise eyebrows and inspire speculation. Small carvings, unusual metal implements, and abstract symbols do not always fit neatly into our understanding of Iron Age material culture. Some researchers suggest they may reflect contact with distant cultures, trade networks, or even spiritual practices lost to time. Others propose more unconventional ideas. Could these settlements have been repositories of knowledge, centers of esoteric rituals, or even markers of territories imbued with a kind of sacred geometry? While mainstream archaeology approaches these questions cautiously, the patterns persist, inviting us to wonder what lies just beyond our current comprehension. The landscape itself seems to guard its secrets. Castro de Coaña is enveloped in mist during the mornings, the stones glinting with dew as if reluctant to reveal their stories. Walking among the foundations, it is easy to imagine the clatter of daily life, fires burning in central hearths, the chatter of neighbors, and the careful crafting of tools and ornaments. Yet, as the sun arcs across the sky, the shadows shift, and a sense of mystery deepens. What was it about this hill, this vantage point, that drew its inhabitants so many centuries ago? What truths were encoded in the layout of their homes, the placement of stones, or the objects they left behind? Even with modern excavation and analysis, Castro de Coaña resists a full interpretation. The ruins are silent witnesses, holding fragments of human ambition, ingenuity, and perhaps even belief systems that we may never fully grasp. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers, leaving us to navigate the boundary between what is known and what remains hidden. As one gazes across the grassy terraces and ancient walls, it becomes clear that the story of Castro de Coaña is far from complete. What secrets remain buried beneath the earth? What traces of thought, ritual, or innovation have slipped entirely through the cracks of time? The site invites us to pause, to ponder, and to consider that, in the vast tapestry of human history, some mysteries endure, quiet, inscrutable, and endlessly compelling. From the windswept heights overlooking the modern city of Yerevan, the ruins of Erebuni Fortress rise against the sky, a testament to human ambition etched in stone. Even today, its massive walls, partially reconstructed, carry the weight of more than 2.5 millennia. Yet beneath what visitors commonly see lies an earlier story, a hidden layer of stone and earth that whispers of a time long before the citadel reached its imposing form. These are the early stone phases of Erebuni, the foundations that hint at a settlement deliberately planned, carefully constructed, and deeply significant in ways that remain partially obscured by history. Founded around 782 BCE by King Argishti I of Urartu, Erebuni is traditionally celebrated as a military and administrative center, a fortress designed to secure borders and assert control over the surrounding Ararat plain. Excavations have revealed the earliest stone constructions, robust walls and rudimentary structures that predate the later grandeur. These stones are rough-hewn, yet meticulously placed, forming foundations that would later support ceremonial halls, temples, and the central citadel. Even in their simplicity, there is a sense of purpose. The layout suggests careful attention, not only to defense, but also to the organization of daily life and ritual practice. How did these early builders determine the geometry of their walls, the placement of gates, the orientation of inner chambers? Was it purely practical, or did the stones themselves carry symbolic weight? Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of pottery, tools, and inscriptions in the early layers of the fortress, evidence of a society skilled in metallurgy, agriculture, and administration. The Urartians, it seems, were more than warriors. They were builders, planners, and chroniclers of their own civilization. Yet certain features resist straightforward explanation. Some early foundations are unusually thick or angled in ways that seem to anticipate later architectural developments. Others contain niches or cavities whose purpose is unclear. Were these functional innovations, or did they serve ceremonial or astronomical purposes now lost to time? Beyond the tangible, there is an intangible aura that surrounds the site. Standing amid the early stone phases, one can sense a dialogue between human ambition and the rugged landscape. The fortress overlooks volcanic hills, rivers, and fertile plains, suggesting that location was chosen with both strategy and symbolism in mind. Some scholars have noted that certain walls and gates align roughly with celestial markers, hinting at a connection between the living world and the cosmic order. Could the early builders have encoded knowledge of the heavens into their stones, leaving messages for those who might come centuries later? Over time, speculative theories have emerged. Some suggest that the early stone phases were more than foundations. They were ritual spaces or repositories of hidden knowledge, or even part of a network of fortresses aligned across the region with purposes beyond mere defense. Others wonder if the fortress's stonework conceals secrets of engineering that we still do not fully understand, techniques lost to the passing of generations. While mainstream archaeology approaches such ideas cautiously, the patterns remain. Walls constructed with precision, layers built with intention, forms that suggest a mind reaching beyond immediate utility. Walking among the ruins today, the mind cannot help but imagine the lives of those who first set these stones in place. They labored in a harsh landscape, carving permanence from chaos, constructing a space that would endure longer than most empires. And yet, for all the knowledge gleaned from excavation, much of the fortress remains a puzzle. The early stone phases speak in fragments, hinting at priorities, beliefs, and capabilities that we may never fully decode. What messages lie hidden in the layers beneath Erebuni's later grandeur? What choices guided the hands of those first builders? And what secrets remain buried under centuries of soil and memory? As we trace the contours of these ancient stones, we are reminded that history is not only what survives, but also what deliberately resists our understanding, an enduring enigma waiting quietly for the curious to discover. As the morning mist lifts over the rugged plains of Avila in central Spain, the vast contours of Castro de Ulaca emerge from the earth like an echo of a civilization long vanished. Perched atop a rocky plateau, this fortified settlement stretches across the horizon, its stone walls following the natural curves of the hill, blending human craft seamlessly with the landscape. From a distance, it seems almost organic, as though the rocks themselves had risen from the ground to form a shelter. Walking among the ruins, one cannot help but sense the deliberate care with which every wall, terrace, and enclosure was positioned, as if the builders sought both protection and harmony with the land around them. Castro de Ulaca, one of the largest known hill forts of the Vetones, dates to the late Iron Age, around the 4th to 2nd centuries BCE. Archaeological studies reveal a society skilled in metallurgy, animal husbandry, and trade, a culture that left behind an intricate network of stone constructions, circular dwellings, and ceremonial enclosures. Excavations have uncovered domestic spaces, grain storage pits, and traces of workshops, pointing to a community that was organized, resourceful, and remarkably enduring. Yet for all the evidence of daily life, the hill fort exudes a mystery that lingers beyond practical explanations. What drove the Vetones to fortify this particular plateau with such precision? And why did they choose these specific contours and vantage points? The defensive walls themselves inspire both awe and questions. Massive stones form concentric barriers that follow the natural terrain, creating a labyrinthine arrangement designed to confuse or slow potential attackers. Gates and entrances are carefully positioned, some facing the rising sun, others oriented toward distant valleys. Was this merely a matter of strategic defense, or did the Vetones embed symbolic meaning into the architecture, encoding ideas about power, spirituality, or cosmic order? Some researchers have speculated that the arrangement of enclosures and terraces might have been used for ritual gatherings, celestial observation, or even early calendrical purposes. The stones, though silent, suggest a knowledge of the landscape and its rhythms that transcends mere survival. Artifacts recovered from the site add layers of intrigue. Iron tools, decorative items, and enigmatic stone sculptures, known as veracos, carved representations of bulls and other animals, dot the landscape. While these are often interpreted as markers of territorial or agricultural significance, some wonder whether they held deeper spiritual or ceremonial meaning. Did these figures serve as protective symbols, or were they part of a ritual language lost to time? Could the placement of these sculpted stones indicate a connection between the living, the landscape, and the unseen forces the Vetones may have revered? Even more compelling are the signs of the settlement's layout and construction methods. Certain walls are built with remarkable precision, fitting stones together without mortar in a manner that has allowed them to endure for more than 2 millennia. Some terraces appear to form patterns that, while subtle, might align with solar or lunar events, echoing the way other ancient cultures integrated the heavens into their architecture. Were these alignments intentional, designed to track time or mark sacred moments? Or are they coincidences, the result of human intuition shaped by landscape? Standing atop the plateau today, the panorama stretches endlessly. Valleys, rivers, and distant hills, all framed by the remnants of human ingenuity. The air carries both the weight of centuries and a whisper of possibility. Castro de Ulaca invites contemplation, drawing us into a dialogue between past and present, between the tangible and the elusive. Even with careful excavation and study, much remains unknown. What thoughts guided the hands that placed these stones, shaped these enclosures, and sculpted these bulls? What rituals, knowledge, or stories have vanished entirely with the people who called this place home? And perhaps most intriguingly, what might still lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting for the curious to discover? Castro de Ulaca remains a testament to human determination and a quiet, enduring mystery. As we descend from the high plains and enduring walls of Castro de Ulaca, our journey winds southward into the rolling hills of Andalusia, Spain. Nestled near the village of Valencina de la Concepcion, surrounded by olive groves and fields that have fed generations, lies Dolmen de la Pastora, a Neolithic monument whose weathered stones whisper of rituals and lives long past. From a distance, it appears as a simple mound of earth, crowned by massive megaliths that jut skyward, yet up close, the site exudes a quiet, almost magnetic authority. Each stone, carefully chosen and positioned, hints at purpose, intention, and an understanding of the world that continues to challenge modern observers. Dolmen de la Pastora is a passage tomb, its long corridor leading inward to a chamber once used for burial and ritual. The outer stones, tall and imposing, form a kind of portal, a threshold between the visible world and realms known only to those who built it. The chamber itself, modest in size but precise in design, is lined with carefully placed slabs, creating a space that feels at once protective and sacred. Walking along the passage today, one can sense the deliberate thought that guided its construction, the meticulous placement of each stone, and the reverence of the hands that labored to shape this enduring structure. Excavations have revealed human remains and artifacts within the dolmen, providing evidence of complex funerary practices. Skeletal fragments, sometimes arranged in clusters, suggest repeated use over generations. Objects such as flint tools, pottery shards, and small ornaments were found alongside the interred, likely as offerings or tokens of remembrance. Yet questions persist. Why this specific location? Why this precise alignment? Some scholars note that the passage aligns with certain celestial events, particularly the winter solstice, when sunlight may illuminate the chamber in a brief, haunting glow. Was this an intentional act of astronomical observation, a symbolic gesture connecting the living to the cycles of the sun, or simply coincidence? The stones themselves evoke both awe and inquiry. Massive slabs, some weighing several tons, were transported and erected without the benefit of modern machinery. How did these early builders coordinate such an immense effort? Was it communal labor, ritualized labor, or a combination of both? And why were some stones chosen for size, shape, or placement that seems deliberate yet inexplicable to the modern eye? Certain slabs bear subtle carvings, abstract patterns whose meaning remains uncertain. Were these symbolic marks, protective talismans, or expressions of belief, now lost to the passage of time? Dolmen de la Pastora is not isolated in its significance. It forms part of a larger landscape of Neolithic monuments and settlements in the region, suggesting a complex network of cultural and ritual connections. Could the placement of this dolmen, relative to others nearby, reflect social organization, territorial boundaries, or shared cosmological understanding? Some researchers suggest the structures were used for ceremonies that linked communities, aligned with seasonal cycles, or honored ancestors whose presence remained vital to the living. Others have proposed more speculative interpretations, including notions of encoded astronomical knowledge or spiritual energy inherent in the stones themselves. The evidence is tantalizing yet inconclusive, leaving space for both reflection and wonder. Inside the chamber, traces of past activity suggest more than mere burial. Charred remains hint at ritual fires. The careful arrangement of bones indicates repeated, deliberate practice. Some artifacts suggest symbolic significance, perhaps offerings or markers of social or familial identity. The interplay of life, death, and the spiritual dimension seems central to the dolmen's purpose, yet the full meaning is beyond reconstruction. What ceremonies unfolded within these stones? What prayers, stories, or invocations passed through the corridor, connecting the living with those who had gone before? Even the surrounding environment seems intertwined with the monument's significance. Rolling hills, fertile plains, and distant rivers offered both sustenance and vantage, yet they also framed the dolmen within a broader cosmic and cultural landscape. Was the location chosen for practical reasons, such as visibility and accessibility, or for a deeper spiritual resonance linking the tomb to the land and the skies above? Could it have functioned as a guidepost, a marker of sacred space, or a center for seasonal rites that we can only imagine today? Walking along the passage and touching the cool, worn stones, one senses the continuity of human intent. Dolmen de la Pastora is more than a collection of rocks. It is a vessel of memory, belief, and artistry, carrying the echoes of those who lived thousands of years ago. Yet, for all its clarity and design, it guards its secrets closely. Who exactly built it? And why did they invest so much effort into this specific form? How did their understanding of life, death, and the cosmos shape every decision, from the placement of stones to the selection of burial artifacts? And what remains hidden beneath the mound, awaiting discovery or interpretation by future generations? The enduring presence of Dolmen de la Pastora invites reflection. Its massive stones, precise passage, and ritualized spaces challenge us to consider the intelligence, spirituality, and imagination of people long gone. It reminds us that while the earth preserves the physical traces of human activity, it does not always reveal the intangible, the beliefs, emotions, and intentions that shaped them. As sunlight filters across the mound, casting long shadows along the passage, one is left with a profound sense of continuity and mystery. What might these stones still reveal, if we listen closely enough? And what wisdom of the ancient world remains buried, patiently awaiting rediscovery? In this quiet, windswept place, Dolmen de la Pastora stands not only as a tomb, but as a question. Its presence asks us to consider not just what we can see, but what lies beyond observation, hidden in the interplay of stone, earth, and human purpose. And as we step back into the surrounding fields, the monument lingers in the imagination, a testament to ingenuity, ritual, and the enduring mysteries of our distant past. What secrets remain within, and what truths have yet to emerge from the shadow of these enduring stones? Leaving behind the enduring stones of Dolmen de la Pastora and the sun-drenched plains of Andalusia, our journey turns eastward, across deserts and river valleys, to the ancient site of Ain Ghazal, located on the outskirts of modern-day Amman, Jordan. Here, atop a gentle slope overlooking the fertile plains of the Jordan River, lie the remains of one of humanity's earliest monumental settlements. At first glance, the site seems unassuming, a modest mound rising subtly above the surrounding terrain. Yet beneath its surface lies a tapestry of human ingenuity, ritual, and mystery stretching back nearly 9,000 years, into the depths of the Neolithic period. Ain Ghazal was no ordinary village. Excavations reveal a densely populated settlement with clusters of plastered mud brick houses arranged in an intricate, almost labyrinthine pattern. Some dwellings were expanded and modified repeatedly, creating layers of occupation that chronicle generations of human life. The walls, often plastered with lime, reveal careful attention to both durability and aesthetic, suggesting a society that valued permanence and community. But why this specific location? Was it simply a matter of fertile soil, access to water, and protection from the elements, or did the site hold spiritual, symbolic, or cosmological significance that guided the builder's choices? The scale of Ain Ghazal hints at remarkable social organization. Estimates suggest that at its peak, the settlement may have housed several thousand individuals, a formidable population for the Neolithic world. Streets, shared spaces, and communal areas suggest coordination and planning, yet archaeologists have uncovered anomalies that provoke curiosity. Certain areas of the settlement are densely packed with homes and artifacts, while others remain mysteriously sparse. Were these distinctions functional, ritualistic, or symbolic? And how did the community govern itself, maintain cohesion, and coordinate labor across such a large population without written records? Perhaps most intriguing are the artifacts that suggest a profound spiritual life. Ain Ghazal is renowned for its plaster figurines, some depicting human forms with abstracted features, others carefully modeled with detailed facial characteristics. These artifacts, crafted with painstaking effort, were often buried beneath floors or in communal spaces, indicating ritual significance. What did these figures represent? Ancestors, deities, or symbolic guardians? And what role did they play in the daily and ceremonial life of the settlement? The answers remain elusive, as the symbolism encoded in these figures has not survived in any decipherable written form. Human burials add further layers of mystery. Skeletal remains found at Ain Ghazal suggest complex funerary practices, including the careful interment of bodies and, in some cases, removal or modification of bones. What beliefs guided these practices? Did the inhabitants see the dead as an ongoing presence within the settlement, influencing daily life and decision-making? Or were these actions expressions of social hierarchy, spiritual devotion, or ritual performance whose meanings are now lost? The arrangement and treatment of the dead reveal intentionality and reverence, yet leave the details shrouded in uncertainty. Even the construction methods hint at sophistication that is remarkable for this era. Plaster, lime, and mud brick were combined to create homes that were both functional and enduring. Some structures display repeated rebuilding and modification, suggesting not only long-term occupation, but also the transmission of architectural knowledge across generations. How did the inhabitants of Ain Ghazal acquire, share, and preserve this knowledge in a time before writing? And did certain design choices reflect symbolic or cosmological principles rather than simply practical concerns? The surrounding landscape further fuels speculation. The settlement overlooks fertile plains, yet is situated near the convergence of rivers and hills, which may have influenced both practical and spiritual aspects of life. Some researchers have proposed that Ain Ghazal's positioning enabled ceremonial observation of celestial events, or that the settlement formed part of a network of early Neolithic communities sharing ritual and social knowledge. Could this have been an early experiment in organized urban planning, integrating the practical, the spiritual, and the symbolic into one living landscape? Walking through the remains today, one senses both intimacy and grandeur. Ain Ghazal is a place where the daily lives of thousands intersected with belief, ritual, and community. Its streets, houses, and figurines bear witness to human ingenuity, imagination, and the enduring desire to make sense of life, death, and the world beyond. And yet, for all that has been uncovered, questions persist. What drove this settlement to such remarkable complexity? How did the people negotiate the tension between the mundane and the sacred? And what traces of their knowledge, ritual, or cosmology remain hidden beneath the soil, waiting for discovery? Ain Ghazal reminds us that the past is not simply a record of events. It is a living dialogue between those who came before us and those who seek to understand them. Its walls, streets, and figurines invite contemplation, urging us to imagine the lives, beliefs, and aspirations of a people who existed long before recorded history. What secrets still linger in its earth and plaster, patiently preserved across millennia? And what insights into the origins of human community, ritual, and belief might yet emerge if we continue to explore with patience and curiosity? In the quiet of the mound, as sunlight warms the surviving walls and the wind moves across the plains, Ain Ghazal speaks softly, not in words, but in the enduring presence of human creativity and intention. Its mysteries endure, not to be solved definitively, but to be felt, contemplated, and honored. What remains hidden, waiting beneath the layers of earth, is a question that invites both wonder and reflection. A challenge to understand not only the settlement itself, but the profound complexity of the human spirit at the dawn of civilization. Leaving the fertile plains and enduring architecture of Ain Ghazal behind, our journey carries us northwest, into the rugged landscapes of the Dalmatian hinterland, where limestone cliffs rise above scattered valleys and rivers. Here, perched atop one of these elevated terrains, lies the enigmatic Selca stone settlement. At first glance, it seems almost incidental. Stones scattered across terraces, partially overgrown with vegetation, blending into the surrounding landscape. Yet closer observation reveals evidence of careful human planning: low stone walls, foundations of dwellings, and a subtle network of terraces suggesting both habitation and adaptation to the land. Selca, though quiet today, speaks volumes about a people who once navigated both environment and society with intelligence and intent. The settlement's layout is immediately striking. Terraced platforms, bounded by dry stone walls, form irregular yet deliberate clusters, each one possibly corresponding to a household or communal space. Pathways meander between these clusters, accommodating the contours of the land while maintaining cohesion within the settlement. There is an evident interplay between practicality and design, hinting at both functional needs and perhaps symbolic intentions. How did the builders choose these locations? Were they guided purely by access to water, shelter from wind, and fertile soil, or did the placement of stones carry deeper meaning, perhaps connecting dwellings, ancestors, and the surrounding landscape in ways we can only speculate? Excavations at Selca have revealed artifacts that illuminate daily life while simultaneously deepening the mystery. Flint tools, fragments of pottery, and traces of hearths suggest a community engaged in agriculture, craftsmanship, and domestic labor. Yet anomalies abound. Certain terraces appear deliberately cleared or left unused, while others contain unusual concentrations of stones or artifacts. Were these areas designated for ritual activity, social gatherings, or ceremonial functions now lost to time? And what significance did the arrangement of stones hold for the people themselves? The patterns are subtle, but they suggest intentionality that reaches beyond the purely practical. One of the most intriguing aspects of Selca is its apparent longevity. The settlement seems to have been used over multiple generations, with successive occupants rebuilding walls, modifying terraces, and adapting structures to changing circumstances. How did knowledge of construction and spatial organization transfer across generations? Did the inhabitants preserve specific building techniques, or did they reinterpret them according to new needs? And what social structures enabled this continuity? ensuring the survival of both material culture and cultural memory in a landscape that could be harsh and unforgiving. Beyond architecture and artifacts, the broader environment adds layers of mystery. Selca's terraces overlook valleys and waterways, offering vantage points not only for observation, but potentially for symbolic or spiritual purposes. Could these elevated positions have served as markers of territorial control, social hierarchy, or sacred space? Some researchers suggest that settlements like Selca may have functioned as nodes within a broader network of hilltop communities, linked by trade, seasonal gatherings, or ritual practices. Others speculate on more enigmatic possibilities. Did the stone placements encode celestial knowledge, seasonal cues, or ancestral veneration? A language of stone whose meaning has largely been lost to time. The construction methods themselves invite reflection. The walls, though modest in height, demonstrate careful selection of stone size and placement, ensuring stability on uneven terrain. Terraces show awareness of soil conservation and water management, reflecting sophisticated environmental adaptation. Yet certain features, isolated stones, unusual alignments, or clusters that resist functional explanation, raise questions. Were these markers of social or spiritual boundaries, protective elements, or symbolic gestures whose purpose remains obscure? And why do some areas seem deliberately ordered while others appear chaotic or incomplete, as if the settlement story were interrupted or altered over time? Walking through the remains of Selca today, one cannot help but feel the pulse of human presence. The terraces and walls are silent witnesses to labor, organization, and community. They evoke lives of both routine and ceremony, survival and expression. Yet they resist full understanding. What drove these people to carve their existence into stone so carefully? How did they perceive their world, the mountains, valleys, and skies? And how did that perception shape every decision, from the placement of stones to the organization of communal spaces? And what aspects of their daily and spiritual lives remain hidden beneath the layers of soil and vegetation? Even the artifacts hint at complexity beyond the visible. Pottery fragments may indicate domestic routines, while flint tools suggest craft and subsistence. Yet occasional anomalies, a carved stone, an unusual concentration of objects, a pattern of arrangement that defies immediate explanation, hint at ritual, social hierarchy, or symbolic meaning that we cannot reconstruct with certainty. The settlement seems to carry both the mundane and the sacred within its walls, a duality that reflects the broader human experience, a need to survive and a desire to interpret, shape, and connect with forces beyond the immediate. Selca stone settlement, in its quiet endurance, invites contemplation and curiosity. It is not merely a set of ruins. It is a record of human adaptation, ingenuity, and engagement with both environment and society. Yet it also preserves its secrets, leaving us to wonder at the lives, beliefs, and knowledge of those who once called it home. How did they organize themselves socially? How did they interpret their landscape, their ancestors, or the cosmos above? And what truths remain buried beneath its stones, waiting to be discovered by those patient and observant enough to seek them? Standing among the terraces today, feeling the rough surfaces of stone and the rhythm of the hillside, one senses both intimacy and mystery. Selca stone settlement is a testament to human creativity, resilience, and the desire to impose order and meaning on the world. But it is also a reminder that the past is often incomplete, fragmented, and elusive. Its stones whisper stories of survival, community, and ritual, while leaving the most profound questions unanswered. What secrets remain, preserved in the careful placement of walls, the alignment of terraces, or the hidden traces of artifacts beneath the soil? And what can these mysteries teach us about the human spirit, its ingenuity, and its enduring need to connect with the seen and unseen worlds alike. As we leave the rugged terraces and quiet stones of Selca behind, our journey moves southwest, across the rolling landscapes of central Spain toward the heart of La Mancha, where the plains stretch wide under an expansive sky. Here, amidst fields of wheat and scrub, rise the enigmatic earthworks of Motilla del Azuer, a Bronze Age settlement whose unusual design immediately captures the imagination. From a distance, the site resembles a low, circular mound, seemingly simple, yet closer inspection reveals a labyrinth of fortified walls, towers, and internal structures that speak to careful planning, resource management, and a sophisticated understanding of both human and environmental needs. Motilla del Azuer is part of a network of motillas, fortified settlements built across the La Mancha region during the Middle Bronze Age, roughly 2200 to 1500 BCE. What sets Azuer apart is its striking architectural innovation. A central well, carefully excavated and lined, provides water within the fortification itself, a remarkable solution in a region prone to drought. Surrounding this well are concentric walls, bastions, and terraces, forming a defensive and functional layout that is rare for the period. Was the design purely pragmatic, intended to ensure survival in a harsh landscape? Or was there a symbolic component, a deliberate shaping of space to reflect social hierarchy, ritual observance, or cosmological alignment? The construction itself invites awe and inquiry. Massive stones, earth, and timber were combined with precision to create walls and towers that could endure not only the passage of time, but also potential conflict. The labor required to move materials, construct fortifications, and maintain them over generations indicates a highly organized community. How did Bronze Age people coordinate such complex construction projects? What social structures, leadership, or cultural norms allowed for such cooperation? And why was the settlement designed with such careful symmetry and internal organization, rather than the organic, sprawling layout seen in many contemporary villages? Within the fortification, excavations reveal both the routine and the enigmatic. Foundations of circular dwellings, storage pits, and hearths provide evidence of daily life, while unusual features, such as carefully lined water channels and storage facilities, suggest advanced water management and agricultural planning. Artifacts, including ceramic vessels, flint tools, and occasional bronze objects, testify to craft, trade, and domestic activity. Yet even within these ordinary elements, there are anomalies. Some structures appear deliberately isolated, others unusually fortified, prompting speculation about ceremonial spaces, elite dwellings, or communal areas whose function may have been symbolic as much as practical. The central well itself is a remarkable feature, both engineering and mystery intertwined. Excavations show that it was carefully dug, lined with stones, and maintained over time, providing a reliable water source in an arid landscape. But questions remain. Was the well purely functional, a lifeline for daily survival, or did it also hold spiritual significance? Water often carries symbolic weight in ancient cultures. Was this source revered, ritualized, or perhaps associated with ancestral or seasonal rites? And what role did it play in the settlement's organization, influencing social cohesion, hierarchy, or ceremonial practices? The defensive aspects of Motilla del Azuer also provoke thought. Concentric walls, bastions, and towers suggest protection from potential raiders, yet the location is not on a naturally elevated hill, unlike many contemporary forts. Was the fortification primarily defensive, or did it also serve to signal control, prestige, or territorial authority? Some archaeologists suggest that the motillas were not only centers of subsistence and refuge, but also hubs of regional administration, trade, and surveillance. Others speculate that the layout may encode more symbolic or cosmological functions, perhaps linked to celestial events, seasonal cycles, or local mythologies now lost to history. Artifacts found within the Motilla add layers of mystery. While everyday tools and pottery indicate subsistence and craft, certain objects suggest ritual or symbolic significance. Small votive deposits, unusual ceramic patterns, and carefully positioned stones hint at practices whose meaning remains elusive. Were these offerings intended to ensure agricultural fertility, invoke protection, or honor ancestors? And why do some areas of the settlement show repeated rebuilding or adaptation, while others appear abandoned, as if certain functions or rituals were relocated or forgotten over time? Even the surrounding landscape seems intentionally integrated with the settlement. From the Motilla, one can survey nearby valleys, seasonal streams, and distant hills, a strategic vantage point for monitoring movement and resources. Yet, beyond practicality, there may have been a symbolic connection between the settlement and its environment. Did the inhabitants perceive the landscape as alive or sacred, shaping their architectural choices accordingly? Could certain alignments, entrances, or placements of structures correspond to celestial events, seasonal changes, or ritual observances, creating a dialogue between human activity and the broader world? Walking among the remains today, the scale and ingenuity of Motilla del Azuer are immediately apparent. The carefully constructed walls, terraces, and central well speak of a community deeply aware of both the practical and symbolic dimensions of life. Yet, despite the impressive engineering, many questions remain unanswered. What motivated the combination of defense, domestic life, and water management in this particular design? How did the community balance survival, social organization, and ritual practice? And what knowledge or beliefs guided the placement of stones, the construction of walls, and the maintenance of the central well over generations? The Motilla also challenges assumptions about Bronze Age societies. It demonstrates technical sophistication and strategic thinking, suggesting that communities in this period were capable of complex organization and long-term planning. Yet, the motives behind its design, whether defensive, practical, or symbolic, remain partially obscured. The combination of functionality and possible ritual significance invites reflection on how ancient peoples understood their environment, their society, and their connection to forces beyond the visible world. Motilla del Azuer, in its enduring presence, evokes both awe and mystery. It is more than a settlement. It is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the drive to shape the environment according to necessity, vision, and belief. Yet for all that has been revealed, the site guards its secrets, leaving us to ponder the lives, aspirations, and knowledge of those who built it. What rituals were performed here? How did the water source influence social structure or spiritual practice? And what aspects of Bronze Age life, encoded in stone, earth, and soil, remain hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? Standing on the terraces and looking across the surrounding plains, the silence of Motilla del Azuer carries the weight of centuries. Its walls, bastions, and central well speak not in words, but in the enduring presence of human effort and intention. And in that silence, we are reminded that history is not only a record of what has been, but an invitation to imagine, explore, and reflect. What secrets still lie buried beneath these earthworks? What knowledge, practice, or belief remains concealed, patiently preserved in stone and soil for those patient enough to seek it? Motilla del Azuer endures as both a monument to ingenuity and a mystery that continues to challenge, provoke, and inspire wonder. Leaving the broad plains and remarkable earthworks of Motilla del Azuer behind, our journey moves northward into the rugged, mountainous landscapes of Georgia's Samtskhe-Javakheti region. Here, perched atop a strategic hill that surveys the surrounding valleys and ancient trade routes, lie the remains of Abuli Fortress. From afar, it rises like a silent sentinel, its weathered stone walls tracing the contours of the hill in deliberate curves. The fortress is modest yet imposing, a testament to human ingenuity in a harsh environment. Every stone seems placed with intention, each wall both protective and purposeful, inviting a closer look at the people who once inhabited this remote stronghold. Abuli Fortress is believed to have been constructed during the Late Bronze Age, serving as a fortified settlement in a region characterized by rugged terrain and dispersed communities. The site's location is immediately striking. Elevated enough to provide a panoramic view of valleys, rivers, and mountain passes, yet carefully integrated with the hill itself. The placement reflects a keen understanding of both defense and surveillance. But while the practical reasons are evident, questions emerge. Was the fortress's position also chosen for symbolic or ritual significance? Did the builders view the hill as sacred, a point of connection between the earth and the heavens? And what motivated them to invest such effort in a site that seems simultaneously defensive, domestic, and ceremonial? The construction of Abuli reveals remarkable technical skill. Its stone walls, some preserved to impressive heights, are dry-laid, employing massive blocks fitted with precision. Inside, foundations of dwellings and storage spaces suggest a community organized around both sustenance and security. Yet certain features defy easy explanation. Unusually thick walls in select areas, terraces whose purpose remains unclear, and clusters of stones that do not align with simple functional logic. Were these design choices purely defensive, or did they carry symbolic weight, marking social status, territorial control, or ritual boundaries? And how did the inhabitants coordinate such intricate construction with the limited tools and resources of the Bronze Age? Evidence of domestic life within Abuli adds depth to our understanding while deepening the mystery. Hearths, storage pits, and fragments of ceramic vessels speak to daily routines, cooking, storage, and crafting. Yet some areas appear deliberately left empty or sparsely furnished, as if designated for purposes that elude modern interpretation. Could these spaces have been reserved for communal rituals, ceremonial gatherings, or sacred observances? And how did the inhabitants' social and spiritual life shape the way they built, lived, and organized their community? The fortress also offers tantalizing glimpses into strategic sophistication. Its walls follow the natural contours of the hill, creating defensive angles and bastions that maximize visibility and protection. The layout suggests careful planning and awareness of both immediate threats and long-term sustainability. Yet while defensive concerns are evident, the combination of fortifications, terraces, and dwellings suggests a settlement designed for more than mere survival. Was Abuli a center of regional governance, a hub of trade, or a ceremonial site where spiritual and social activities converged? Some scholars speculate that such fortresses may have played multiple roles simultaneously, functioning as both practical strongholds and symbolic markers of power or ritual authority. Artifacts recovered from Abuli hint at a complex cultural and spiritual life. Pottery fragments, stone tools, and traces of metallurgical activity reveal daily labor and technological skill. But more enigmatic items, carved stones, unusual figurines, and isolated deposits of objects suggest symbolic or ritual purposes whose meaning has been lost. What role did these artifacts play in the community's religious or social practices? Were they offerings, protective talismans, or expressions of belief meant to connect the living with ancestors or deities? And why are some objects deliberately positioned in ways that defy straightforward explanation, as if their significance lay in secrecy or intentional obscurity? The environment surrounding Abuli Fortress seems inseparable from its function and meaning. The hills, rivers, and valleys provided resources, transportation routes, and strategic advantages. Yet they may also have held symbolic or spiritual resonance for the inhabitants. Did the fortress serve as a marker of sacred or territorial boundaries? Were certain views, alignments, or orientations chosen to interact with celestial events, seasonal cycles, or mythological narratives now lost to memory? The integration of settlement, landscape, and ritual suggests a worldview in which human activity, environment, and cosmology were intertwined in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. Even the social implications of Abuli provoke reflection. Constructing and maintaining such a site required organization, labor division, and long-term planning. How were decisions made, labor coordinated, and knowledge transmitted across generations? Did the inhabitants perceive hierarchy, ritual, or communal responsibility differently than modern societies? And how did these social dynamics influence the fortress's design, function, and enduring presence on the landscape? Walking through the ruins today, the combination of simplicity and complexity is immediately apparent. The dry-laid walls, terraces, and foundations speak to human ingenuity, adaptation, and resilience. Yet they also preserve mystery. Not every choice can be explained by survival, efficiency, or convenience. Some features, the placement of stones, the orientation of dwellings, and the arrangement of terraces, hint at knowledge or intentions that remain obscured by time. What knowledge, spiritual insight, or cultural tradition guided these decisions? And what has been lost, preserved only as subtle traces waiting for discovery and interpretation? Abuli Fortress, in its enduring quiet, challenges our understanding of the Bronze Age. It demonstrates technical skill, strategic thinking, and social organization, yet its full significance remains elusive. Was it primarily defensive, ceremonial, administrative, or some combination of all three? How did the inhabitants conceptualize their relationship with the landscape, the cosmos, and the unseen forces they may have believed governed their world? And what secrets, buried beneath centuries of earth and stone, remain beyond the reach of current archaeology? As the wind sweeps across the hilltop today, rustling dry grass and whispering through the fortress walls, there is a palpable sense of continuity and enigma. Abuli stands as both a monument to human ingenuity and a repository of unanswered questions. Its stones, terraces, and fortifications speak not in words, but in the enduring presence of those who labored, lived, and observed here thousands of years ago. In that silence, we are invited to reflect not only on what has been uncovered, but on what remains hidden, on the rituals, knowledge, and intentions that shaped the fortress and its community. Abuli Fortress is more than a ruin. It is a dialogue across millennia, a testament to human resilience, creativity, and the desire to understand and influence the world. Its mysteries endure, encouraging contemplation, curiosity, and exploration. What aspects of Bronze Age life remain encoded in these stones? What secrets have survived the passage of time, waiting patiently beneath walls, terraces, and soil? And perhaps most compelling of all, what does Abuli reveal about the enduring human drive to construct meaning, organize society, and engage with forces beyond the immediately visible world? From the highlands and enduring walls of Abuli Fortress, our journey now carries us westward, across Iberian landscapes shaped by centuries of human history, to the rolling plains of Alentejo in southern Portugal. Here, amid the gentle undulations of pasture land and scattered cork trees, rises one of Europe's most remarkable megalithic monuments, the Dolmen of Grande do Zambujeiro. From a distance, the dolmen appears as a low mound crowned by enormous stone slabs, their sheer size and careful arrangement striking even before closer inspection. Up close, the scale and precision of the construction invite both awe and deep curiosity, hinting at a community with sophisticated technical skill, spiritual awareness, and a desire to shape space in ways that resonate across millennia. Dolmen of Grande do Zambujeiro is classified as a passage tomb, a type of monumental grave characteristic of the late Neolithic and early Chalcolithic periods, around 4000 to 3000 BCE. Its central chamber is formed by massive upright stones, supporting a series of capstones, creating an interior space that once served as a repository for the dead. The passage leading to the chamber is unusually long, suggesting deliberate architectural planning designed to control the movement of light, space, and possibly the visitor's experience. Yet questions abound. Why this specific location, on this gentle hill overlooking plains? Was the site chosen for visibility, proximity to settlements, or perhaps alignment with celestial events, such as solstices or equinoxes, that marked the cycles of life and time? The construction itself is staggering. The central capstone alone weighs several tons, an extraordinary feat considering the technological limitations of the time. How did the builders transport these stones across uneven terrain, lift them into place, and stabilize them so effectively without modern tools? The coordination, labor, and knowledge required imply a sophisticated community capable of both collective effort and long-term planning. Could the size and scale of the dolmen also have carried symbolic meaning, a physical manifestation of social or spiritual authority? And if so, what message were they conveying to the living, the ancestors, or perhaps the cosmos itself? Inside the chamber, archaeological investigations reveal evidence of repeated use over generations. Human remains, sometimes carefully arranged, sometimes interred in clusters, attest to complex funerary practices. Artifacts including pottery, stone tools, and ornamental objects accompany the dead, hinting at ritual, remembrance, and perhaps a belief in an afterlife. But interpretations remain speculative. Why are some burials placed in specific patterns while others appear seemingly haphazard? Were certain individuals afforded special treatment, and if so, what social, spiritual, or symbolic criteria determined these distinctions? And what can these choices tell us about the worldview, hierarchy, and belief system of the builders? The dolmen's orientation and design suggest deliberate engagement with light, shadow, and seasonal cycles. Scholars have noted that at certain times of the year, sunlight enters the passage and illuminates the inner chamber, a phenomenon that may have had ritual significance. Was this an intentional calendrical device, a means of connecting the living with celestial cycles, or a symbolic gesture linking life, death, and renewal? And if so, how sophisticated was the community's understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and the interplay between architecture and natural forces? The surrounding landscape further deepens the mystery. From the dolmen's vantage point, one can survey fertile plains, distant hills, and the winding courses of rivers that would have provided water, sustenance, and transport. Yet the location may have held spiritual significance beyond practicality, marking sacred territory or establishing a visible connection between the living community and the ancestral dead. Could the placement of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro have functioned as part of a wider network of ritual sites, aligned along routes of seasonal pilgrimage, trade, or ceremonial observance? Or did it stand as a solitary monument, asserting the presence and permanence of a specific group in the landscape? Even the stones themselves carry questions. Some capstones bear subtle carvings or patterns, while others show signs of shaping or selection that suggest symbolic intention. Were these decorative, ritualistic, or functional, serving to mark status, identity, or cosmic significance? And why do certain structural choices, such as the width of the passage or the height of the chamber, seem so precise, as if the architects intended not only to enclose space, but to shape human experience, perception, or interaction with light and shadow? The scale of collective effort involved in building Anta Grande do Zambujeiro also hints at social organization. Coordinating the transport of massive stones, assembling the chamber, and maintaining the monument over generations would have required leadership, cooperation, and cultural cohesion. What social mechanisms enabled such large-scale collaboration? Did spiritual or ritual beliefs motivate labor, or was it driven by political authority, communal identity, or both? And how did the community ensure that knowledge of construction, alignment, and ritual use persisted across generations without written records? Walking through the dolmen today, one is struck by the juxtaposition of intimacy and grandeur. The enclosed chamber, the narrow passage, and the weight of the stones evoke both reverence and wonder. It is a space where the dead were honored, where ritual likely intertwined with daily life, and where human intention shaped the landscape in ways that endure thousands of years later. Yet despite extensive study, much remains unknown. What ceremonies unfolded within these stones? How did the builders conceptualize life, death, and the cosmos? And what secrets have been lost, preserved only in the subtle alignments, spatial arrangements, and enduring presence of the monument? Dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro is more than a burial site. It is a profound testament to human ingenuity, belief, and the desire to leave a lasting imprint on the world. Its massive stones, carefully aligned passage, and enduring presence inspire awe and invite reflection. And while archaeology can illuminate construction methods, artifacts, and material culture, it cannot fully reveal the inner life, thoughts, or spiritual frameworks of those who built it. What remains hidden, encoded in stone, soil, and orientation, is a challenge to the imagination, a mystery preserved across millennia. Even in silence, the dolmen speaks. The weight of its stones, the intentionality of its construction, and the careful positioning of its passage all suggest a people attuned to both the physical and symbolic dimensions of life. It is a place where practical needs, shelter, protection, and communal organization intersect with ritual, cosmology, and ancestral memory. And it stands as a reminder that much of human history is encoded not in texts, but in the very earth and stone that our ancestors shaped with patience, knowledge, and reverence. As the sun casts long shadows across the Anta Grande do Zambujeiro today, illuminating the passage and highlighting the contours of its massive stones, one cannot help but feel both connection and wonder. What knowledge, beliefs, and intentions were embedded in this construction? What rites were enacted in the chamber? And what mysteries, still obscured by the passage of millennia, remain buried beneath its mound, waiting for patient eyes and open minds to uncover them? Dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro endures as both monument and enigma, a silent challenge to the modern observer, inviting contemplation of the ingenuity, devotion, and imagination of a community long gone, yet not forgotten. What stories linger in its stones, and what secrets await discovery beneath its enduring structure? From the rolling plains and monumental stones of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, our journey continues eastward into the sun-scorched hills of southern Spain. Here, in the province of Antequera, Andalusia, lies a site that immediately arrests the imagination, the Tholos of El Romeral. Perched on a gentle rise, amidst a landscape dotted with megalithic mounds and distant mountain ranges, the Tholos presents itself as a subtle yet powerful convergence of architecture, ritual, and human intention. Its stone facade, weathered by millennia, hints at the ingenuity of those who built it, and as one approaches, the enormity of the capstone and the precision of the masonry evoke both awe and lingering questions about its purpose. El Romeral is a type of tholos, or beehive tomb, characteristic of the late Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods, roughly 3000 to 2500 BCE. Unlike the simple dolmens that preceded it, this structure is circular, with a corbelled chamber rising beneath an enormous capstone. The tholos is enclosed by a trapezoidal passage, carefully aligned with the chamber, creating a deliberate transition from the external world to the sacred interior. From the first moment, the architecture invites reflection. What inspired these builders to move from linear dolmens to circular vaulted spaces? Was it purely functional, designed to distribute weight more effectively, or did the shape hold symbolic resonance, echoing cycles of life, death, and the cosmos? The construction of El Romeral is staggering. Massive stones, some weighing several tons, were quarried, transported, and meticulously placed using only the tools and techniques available at the time. The corbelled dome, a remarkable engineering achievement, creates a space that is both structurally sound and visually imposing. How did the builders calculate angles, balance enormous slabs, and coordinate labor across what was likely a community of limited size and technology? And beyond practicality, was the design intended to evoke a sense of awe, to guide those entering the tomb along a spiritual or ritual journey? Inside the chamber, evidence of repeated use underscores the Tholos' significance. Human remains, sometimes carefully arranged, other times commingled, point to generations of burials and ongoing ritual practice. Accompanying artifacts, including pottery, flint tools, and ornamental objects, offer glimpses into the daily lives and spiritual beliefs of the community. Yet, even with these clues, mysteries persist. Why were certain burials placed in specific locations? What determined which artifacts accompanied the dead? Were these objects intended to provide for the afterlife, to honor ancestors, or to serve as symbols of social identity within the living community? The passage leading into the Tholos adds another layer of intrigue. Narrow and trapezoidal, it creates a controlled movement of light and shadow, particularly at certain times of the year. Scholars have suggested that the alignment of the passage may correspond to solstices or equinoxes, allowing sunlight to illuminate the interior in a fleeting but profound display. If intentional, this design reflects a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and symbolism. Was the interplay of light and space a way to connect the living with the dead, to mark the passage of time, or to evoke cosmic order? Or was it a more subtle ritual device, a marker of sacred cycles whose meaning is now obscured by centuries? Even the placement of El Romeral within the broader landscape suggests intentionality beyond the immediate site. The Tholos forms part of a megalithic complex with other nearby tombs and mounds creating a network of sacred spaces. Could these arrangements have served as territorial markers, pilgrimage points, or ceremonial centers linking multiple communities? And what knowledge guided the selection of each site? Knowledge of topography, celestial observation, social interaction, or spiritual resonance with the land itself? The answers remain elusive, preserved only in the careful arrangement of stones and the enduring presence of the tombs across time. Artifacts recovered within El Romeral deepen the sense of mystery. While everyday tools and pottery fragments reveal practical aspects of life, certain unusual objects suggest ritual or symbolic significance. Votive deposits, carved stones, and carefully positioned items hint at practices whose meaning we can only speculate on. Were these offerings intended to honor ancestors, invoke protection, or mark ceremonial rites aligned with seasonal cycles? And why do certain features of the tomb, its passage, chamber, and orientation, resist purely functional explanation, suggesting a layered purpose blending utility, symbolism, and ritual? The engineering and labor invested in the Tholos also point to complex social organization. Coordinating the transport of massive stones, the construction of the corbelled chamber, and ongoing maintenance would have required leadership, collaboration, and the transmission of knowledge over time. What social structures enabled this coordination? Were rituals themselves a motivating force, encouraging communal labor and reinforcing cohesion? And how did the society balance everyday survival with the investment of resources and energy into a monument that would endure for millennia? Walking through the Tholos of El Romeral today, one experiences both intimacy and grandeur. The enclosed chamber, the narrow passage, and the weight of the massive stones convey a sense of reverence and purpose. This was a space where the living engaged with the dead, where ritual, architecture, and human intention converged. Yet for all that has been uncovered, much remains uncertain. What ceremonies unfolded here? How did those who entered perceive their role in relation to ancestors or cosmic forces? And what aspects of belief, symbolism, or knowledge are encoded in the structure, waiting silently for rediscovery? El Romeral exemplifies a transition in human understanding of space, death, and ritual. Moving from simple dolmens to the circular vaulted design of the Tholos reflects a shift not only in architectural capability, but potentially in spiritual perception. It is a monument to ingenuity, labor, and belief, an enduring testament to the ways humans sought to order their environment, honor their dead, and connect with forces beyond the immediately visible world. Even in silence, the Tholos communicates. Its massive stones, precise construction, and deliberate orientation suggest intelligence, intention, and cultural continuity. And yet it guards its secrets closely. The full meaning of the space, the significance of light and shadow, and the symbolic choices behind every stone remain partially obscured by time. What knowledge, ritual, or cosmology guided its creation? What practices took place within the chamber, and how did they shape the lives of the living community? And most intriguingly, what might remain hidden, waiting to be discovered beneath millennia of earth and memory? As sunlight shifts across the passage and chamber today, illuminating stones worn smooth by centuries, one is reminded that human history is encoded not only in texts or artifacts, but in the very structures left behind. The Tholos of El Romeral stands as both a monument and a question, a place where engineering, ritual, and imagination intersect. It challenges the modern observer to imagine the minds and beliefs of those who built it, to ponder the cycles of life and death, and to wonder what truths have been preserved in stone for thousands of years. El Romeral invites reflection, curiosity, and reverence. Its enduring presence reminds us that monuments are not simply records of what has been. They are dialogues across time, preserving knowledge, intention, and mystery in ways that demand patience, attention, and imagination. What lies hidden within its walls, beneath its capstone, or in the subtle alignments of its passage? And what insights into human belief, ingenuity, and societal organization await those willing to engage with the silent testimony of this remarkable Tholos? Leaving the sun-washed plains and vaulted stones of El Romeral behind, our journey shifts westward and upward, across the highlands of the Andean Plateau in southern Peru. Here, the landscape transforms into a tapestry of wind-sculpted hills, rugged cliffs, and the deep reflective waters of Lake Umayo. Perched on promontories overlooking this lake, silhouetted against the azure sky and distant peaks, rise the monumental Cholpas of Sillustani, towering cylindrical burial towers that immediately command attention. Their carefully stacked stones, weathered by centuries of wind and rain, suggest both technical mastery and a profound relationship with death, memory, and the cosmos. From the first glance, Sillustani exudes quiet mystery, inviting us to explore the lives and beliefs of those who built it. Sillustani served as a necropolis for the Kula people, pre-Inca inhabitants of the region, and dates from roughly the 12th to 15th centuries CE. The Cholpas vary in size, some reaching over 12 meters high, and are often situated atop hilltops that dominate the surrounding valleys. Their cylindrical shape is immediately striking, differing from the rectangular or trapezoidal forms of contemporary tombs elsewhere in the Andes. Was this design purely functional, to protect the remains from both humans and the elements, or did it carry symbolic meaning, representing cycles of life and death, or perhaps the connection between earth, sky, and the divine. And why place these towers in such commanding positions, overlooking the lake and the valley, as if keeping watch over the living as well as honoring the dead? The construction of the chulpas reveals meticulous craftsmanship. Stones were carefully cut and shaped to fit tightly without mortar, forming smooth, cylindrical walls. Some towers feature inward-sloping walls, narrowing slightly as they rise, a design that ensures structural stability. Others have intricately carved stones or small niches, hinting at decorative or symbolic intention. How did the builders manage to transport and position such massive stones on remote hilltops? And what knowledge, mathematical, architectural, or ritual, guided their decisions in shaping these impressive monuments? Inside the chulpas, human remains were often interred in a seated position, wrapped in textiles and accompanied by offerings, pottery, tools, and personal items intended to accompany the dead in the afterlife. The careful preparation of the bodies, the attention to burial placement, and the inclusion of objects suggest that these were not merely graves, but deliberate spaces designed for remembrance, reverence, and perhaps spiritual guidance. Yet questions remain. Why were some individuals interred in larger, more elaborate towers, while others rested in smaller, simpler structures? Were these distinctions a reflection of social hierarchy, family lineage, or spiritual significance? And what beliefs governed these burial practices? Beliefs that, while partially reconstructed through archaeology, remain ultimately speculative. The location of Sillustani itself adds layers of intrigue. Each chulpa is oriented with careful attention to the surrounding topography. Many align with cardinal points, nearby lakes, or prominent mountain peaks, suggesting an intentional integration with the landscape. Was this orientation functional, symbolic, or both? Did the Kula people perceive the land and sky as intimately connected to human life and death? And were the towers designed as conduits between the earthly and spiritual realms? And how did the interplay of sunlight, shadow, and terrain affect the perception of the towers during rituals or seasonal ceremonies? Artifacts recovered from Sillustani provide glimpses into daily life and ritual practice while deepening the mystery. Pottery fragments, stone tools, and textile remnants reveal a culture skilled in craft, trade, and subsistence. Yet isolated objects, unusual patterns of deposition, and carefully arranged stones suggest ceremonial practices that cannot be fully reconstructed. Were these offerings intended to secure the favor of ancestors, to protect the living community, or to mark seasonal cycles and celestial events? And why do certain chulpas feature architectural features that have no immediately apparent practical function, as if encoding knowledge or symbolism now lost? The social implications of Sillustani are striking. Constructing and maintaining such monumental towers required extensive coordination, labor, and knowledge transfer. How did the Kula organize themselves to achieve these feats? Was it the work of a centralized authority, a community effort, or a combination of both? And how did spiritual beliefs, ritual obligations, or social hierarchy shape the design, placement, and upkeep of the chulpas over generations? The towers themselves become a silent testament to human organization, cultural continuity, and the desire to leave a lasting mark upon the landscape. Walking among the towers today, one is struck by the interplay of scale, space, and human intention. Some chulpas rise with solemn grandeur, dominating the hilltops, while others, more modest, cluster nearby, creating a rhythm across the terrain. The landscape, lake, cliffs, and distant mountains, interacts with these constructions, enhancing their presence and perhaps influencing the perception of those who approached them for ritual or remembrance. How did the builders anticipate the visual impact of these towers, and what experiences were they seeking to evoke in the living, in the ancestors, or in the cosmos itself. Even the stones themselves hint at intentionality beyond construction. Certain walls feature smooth, carefully dressed surfaces. Others incorporate projections or niches that may have served ritual or symbolic purposes. Were these design elements functional, protective, or symbolic markers of identity, spirituality, or cosmological understanding? And what knowledge guided the selection, shaping, and placement of each stone, a knowledge transmitted orally, experientially, or through cultural tradition, yet now largely obscured by time? Sillustani also challenges modern assumptions about pre-Columbian Andean societies. The technical skill, social coordination, and ritual complexity implied by the chulpas reveal a culture capable of sophisticated thought, long-term planning, and engagement with both the material and spiritual worlds. Yet, the exact beliefs, ceremonies, and cosmological frameworks that guided these constructions remain elusive. How did the Kula perceive life, death, and the landscape around them? And how did these perceptions shape not only the towers themselves, but also the social and spiritual life of the community? Standing among the chulpas today, feeling the weight of stone and the sweep of the plateau, one senses both presence and absence. Sillustani is a place where the living honored the dead, where ritual intertwined with landscape, and where human intention shaped the world in enduring ways. Yet for all its monumental presence, the site retains its mysteries. What rites were performed in and around the towers? How did the orientation, placement, and scale of the chulpas reflect beliefs about ancestors, cosmos, or territory? And what aspects of knowledge or cultural memory remain hidden, preserved silently within the stone walls and highland winds? Sillustani is more than a necropolis. It is a dialogue across centuries. Its towering chulpas speak of ingenuity, devotion, and the desire to shape human experience and memory. Yet they also preserve enigma, challenging us to imagine the thoughts, beliefs, and intentions of a people whose world, while partially reconstructed, remains largely inaccessible. What secrets lie in the careful arrangement of stones, the orientation of towers, or the objects placed within them? And what can these silent witnesses teach us about human creativity, resilience, and the enduring desire to connect the living with the dead, the earth with the sky, and the seen with the unseen? As the wind sweeps across the hilltops today, whispering through stone corridors and around sun-bleached terraces, Sillustani invites reflection, curiosity, and awe. It stands as both a monument and a mystery, reminding us that human history is often preserved not in words, but in the enduring presence of places shaped by intention, belief, and care. And it asks a question that remains unanswered. What truths, rituals, and knowledge are still hidden here, waiting for those willing to look, to listen, and to imagine across the centuries? From the soaring chulpas of Sillustani, our journey now returns across continents and oceans to the rolling hills and verdant fields of South Wales. Here, among gently undulating pastures near the village of St. Nicholas, stands one of the most striking Neolithic monuments of Britain, the Tinkinswood burial chamber. At first glance, it appears deceptively simple, a large, flat capstone resting atop upright stones. But its sheer scale and the precision of its construction immediately arrest the eye. The capstone alone measures approximately 6 by 5 meters and weighs an estimated 40 tons, towering over the surrounding landscape in quiet yet formidable authority. Approaching it, one senses both the weight of the stones and the weight of time itself, a monument shaped by hands now long vanished. Tinkinswood dates to the late Neolithic period, around 4000 to 3000 BCE, part of a wider tradition of megalithic burial chambers that spans Europe. Its structure is classified as a dolmen or portal tomb, a type of chambered monument used for collective burials. Unlike many of its contemporaries, Tinkinswood's capstone is remarkable not only for its size, but for its subtle slope and placement, suggesting careful planning and an intimate understanding of weight, balance, and geometry. How did Neolithic builders, armed only with simple tools, manage to lift and position such a colossal stone? And why choose this particular location, on a ridge that commands views over the surrounding countryside, yet remains subtly hidden from immediate notice? The burial chamber itself, enclosed beneath the capstone, once housed numerous individuals, placed in careful but sometimes overlapping arrangements. Excavations have revealed fragments of at least 10 individuals, alongside pottery sherds, flint tools, and other artifacts. These remains speak to a community that practiced repeated interment, where the chamber was a sacred repository over generations. But many questions remain. Why were some bodies positioned in specific orientations? Were certain individuals accorded special treatment, and if so, on what basis? Social status, kinship, spiritual role, or something now unknowable? And what ritual or symbolic meaning did the capstone, with its immense presence, hold for those who placed their ancestors beneath it? The sheer physicality of Tinkinswood invites reflection. The capstone, precariously balanced on slender upright supports, demonstrates not only engineering skill, but also an aesthetic or symbolic sensibility. Was the placement of the stone meant to convey power, permanence, or connection with celestial forces? Some scholars have speculated that subtle alignments within the structure may relate to solstices, lunar cycles, or seasonal observation, though definitive evidence remains elusive. Could the builders have intentionally encoded astronomical knowledge into the very architecture of the tomb, bridging practical, symbolic, and spiritual functions in one monumental act? The surrounding landscape further adds to the enigma. Tinkinswood is sited atop a gentle rise, overlooking fields, hedgerows, and distant hills. Its placement allows visibility across the territory, yet it is also oriented in relation to other nearby megalithic monuments, suggesting a network of sacred sites. Did these alignments reflect territorial markers, ritual pathways, or interconnected ceremonial landscapes? And what was the relationship between the living community and the tombs of their ancestors? Were they places of veneration, pilgrimage, or communal gathering, or a combination of all three? Artifacts found within Tinkinswood provide glimpses into Neolithic life, yet they also deepen the mystery. Pottery sherds, stone tools, and charcoal fragments indicate subsistence, craft, and ritual activity. Yet the choices behind deposition, why certain objects accompany the dead, why certain parts of the chamber are empty or marked differently, remain largely unexplained. Were these offerings meant to ensure safe passage to an afterlife, to honor particular individuals, or to encode social or spiritual hierarchies? And why do some features of the monument, such as the capstone's precise angle and subtle slope, defy purely functional explanation, hinting at aesthetic or symbolic considerations we may never fully understand? The social organization required to construct Tinkinswood also invites reflection. Coordinating the movement, lifting, and precise placement of massive stones would have required knowledge, cooperation, and leadership. Was this an effort organized by a single authoritative group, or a community-wide collaboration driven by shared ritual and spiritual motivation? How did Neolithic people transmit knowledge of construction techniques, ceremonial practice, and sacred purpose without written language? And how did such projects shape the social cohesion, identity, and hierarchy of the communities who built them? Walking among the stones today, one feels both intimacy and grandeur. The low, dark chamber beneath the immense capstone evokes awe, reverence, and perhaps a quiet fear as the weight of history presses down. The tomb is a space where human life and death, ritual practice, and the landscape converge. Its stones, weathered by millennia, whisper of both the living who labored to build it and the ancestors whose remains it protects. Yet despite extensive study, much remains unresolved. What ceremonies took place here? How did the builders and visitors perceive their connection to the dead, the land, or the cosmos? And what beliefs or knowledge embedded in stone and soil have been lost to time? Tinkinswood also challenges assumptions about Neolithic societies. The technical skill, conceptual planning, and ritual investment required to construct such a monument indicate communities capable of sophisticated thought and long-term vision. Yet the symbolic, spiritual, and social frameworks guiding these actions remain partially hidden. What understanding of life, death, and the forces beyond human perception motivated these constructions? And how did these beliefs influence daily life, social organization, and interactions with the broader landscape? Even in silence, the monument communicates. The massive capstone, the careful arrangement of uprights, and the integration with surrounding terrain speak of intention, effort, and cultural continuity. The tomb stands as a dialogue across time, inviting the modern observer to imagine the minds, beliefs, and aspirations of those who conceived and built it. What aspects of human experience, encoded in stone, remain hidden? What knowledge, ritual, or cosmology lies beneath its capstone, waiting to be rediscovered? Tinkinswood Burial Chamber endures as both a monument and a question, a place where ingenuity, devotion, and imagination converge. It is a space that reminds us that human history is preserved not only in texts and artifacts, but also in the enduring presence of structures built with care, purpose, and reverence. And it asks us to wonder, what truths, practices, and beliefs are still buried beneath its stones, preserved across millennia, waiting for those willing to observe with patience, curiosity, and imagination? As sunlight filters through the gaps in the surrounding landscape and casts shadows across the grass, the tomb stands silently, a sentinel of memory and enigma. Tinkinswood is not merely a relic of the past. It is an invitation to contemplate, question, and explore the enduring mysteries of human ingenuity, belief, and the desire to leave a mark that transcends time. What secrets remain concealed in its stones, its chamber, and its place within the wider Neolithic landscape? And what stories, unspoken yet preserved in the weight and alignment of its stones, await discovery by those willing to listen across the millennia? From the rolling green hills and ancient stones of Tinkinswood, our journey turns northward, across the North Sea to the windswept island of Öland in southern Sweden. Here, on a slightly elevated plateau amidst forests and open farmland, lies a site that, at first glance, appears deceptively simple: the Eketorp Fortress. Viewed from a distance, its low stone walls and circular ramparts blend with the surrounding landscape. Yet as one approaches, the ingenuity and layered history of the site become clear. The fortress is a complex of concentric walls, gates, and internal structures, a deliberate design that speaks to both practical defense and social organization. It is a place where human life, conflict, and community intersected for centuries, leaving traces that continue to puzzle and inspire. Eketorp's origins stretch back to the Iron Age, around 400 CE, with later modifications extending into the medieval period, around 1200 CE. The fortress occupies a strategic location, commanding views across the surrounding plains and coastline, controlling movement, resources, and access. Its circular walls, reinforced with stone and earth, were designed to withstand both human attackers and the forces of time. Yet the site is far more than a military installation. Archaeological evidence suggests that Eketorp functioned as a living settlement, a trading post, and a ceremonial space. How did the community balance the practical needs of defense with the social and ritual life of its inhabitants? And why was this specific location, on a modest rise rather than a high mountain or cliff, chosen as the focal point of such a complex site? The architecture of Eketorp reveals remarkable planning. The fortress contains two concentric walls, an outer wall forming a protective ring around the settlement and an inner wall surrounding the central courtyard. Gates, passageways, and living quarters were arranged to optimize security while maintaining accessibility for residents and visitors. Archaeologists have found traces of homes, workshops, storage facilities, and communal spaces, suggesting a society adept at balancing daily life, economic activity, and communal organization. But questions remain. What dictated the layout of the fortress? Was it purely functional, a response to environmental and strategic considerations, or did symbolic or ritual concerns influence the placement of structures and gates? And how did the inhabitants conceptualize space, order, and hierarchy within these circular walls? Excavations have uncovered a rich variety of artifacts, from iron tools and weapons to pottery, jewelry, and animal remains. These finds reveal a community engaged in agriculture, craftsmanship, trade, and possibly ceremonial observances. Yet, certain discoveries raise intriguing questions. Why are some areas densely packed with domestic refuse, while others contain objects arranged in ways that hint at ritual or symbolic significance? Were certain spaces within the fortress reserved for leaders, religious specialists, or communal ceremonies? And how did the inhabitants negotiate the tension between the everyday and the sacred, between living and preparing for threats from both human and environmental forces? The defensive design of Eketorp is itself a subject of fascination. Its circular walls create multiple layers of fortification, with a single controlled entrance that could be monitored and defended. Yet the fortress is unusually compact for a defensive site, suggesting it was not intended to house large armies, but rather to protect a smaller, organized community. What threats motivated such construction? Raiders, rival communities, or natural hazards? And how did the builders integrate knowledge of local topography, materials, and engineering principles to create a structure both enduring and adaptable across centuries? The site's repeated occupation adds another layer of complexity. Eketorp was in use for several hundred years, with modifications and repairs reflecting changing needs, technologies, and social structures. How did the community maintain continuity over such an extended period? Were rituals and traditions preserved alongside practical adaptations, ensuring that knowledge of defense, construction, and social norms was transmitted across generations? And how did external pressures, trade, migration, or conflict shape the evolution of the fortress? One of the most intriguing aspects of Eketorp is its intersection of domestic and defensive life. Within its walls, people farmed, crafted, and conducted daily routines, while also remaining ever mindful of potential threats. This duality raises questions about the social organization of the community. Were there clearly defined roles, leaders, warriors, craftsmen, farmers, or did individuals participate fluidly in both labor and defense? And how did ritual, ceremony, or spiritual belief influence the way space was used, maintained, and perceived within the fortress? Archaeological reconstructions of Eketorp reveal a dynamic, multi-layered settlement. The outer wall defines the perimeter. The inner wall protects a central space, and houses, workshops, and communal areas fill the interior. The careful organization suggests a society deeply attuned to both human needs and the imperatives of security. Yet much remains uncertain. How did inhabitants conceptualize the meaning of living within walls, in close proximity to both protection and constraint? And what symbolic or spiritual significance did the fortress hold beyond its practical function as a place of shelter and defense? Even the landscape surrounding Eketorp invites reflection. From the fortress, one can see open fields, forests, and the distant coastline, a vantage that allowed inhabitants to monitor both natural and human activity. Was this panoramic view selected purely for tactical advantage, or did it carry additional significance, connecting the settlement to the rhythms of the land, the sea, and the celestial cycles? And how did the environment itself shape human activity, ritual practice, and the social organization within the walls? Walking through the site today, one senses both continuity and mystery. The stones of the walls, the remnants of dwellings, and the traces of long-abandoned workshops evoke human presence across centuries. Eketorp is a place of labor, defense, and daily life, yet it is also a space of questions about the people who built it, their priorities, their fears, and their aspirations. How did they perceive time, mortality, and the broader world beyond the walls? And what knowledge, practices, or intentions, encoded in the placement of stones, the design of walls, or the organization of space, remain obscured by the passage of centuries? Eketorp Fortress stands as both monument and enigma. Its enduring walls testify to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the capacity to organize complex societies within challenging environments. Yet it also invites contemplation of the unknown, the rituals unrecorded, the daily lives partially erased by time, and the decisions of leaders, builders, and inhabitants that remain hidden beneath centuries of soil and memory. What truths, strategies, and beliefs are preserved in the stones themselves, waiting for careful observation and reflection to bring them to light? As the wind sweeps across Öland today, whispering through the gaps in the walls and across the plateau, Eketorp reminds us that human history is encoded not only in artifacts or texts, but also in the enduring presence of places shaped by intention, need, and imagination. It asks a question that echoes across centuries. What can this fortress tell us about the people who lived, worked, and defended themselves within its walls? And what mysteries, preserved in structure, space, and the landscape, are still waiting to be discovered by those willing to observe with patience, curiosity, and reverence? From the windswept plateau and fortified walls of Eketorp, our journey now sweeps southward across the Mediterranean to the rugged hills and sun-drenched landscapes of Sardinia. Here, scattered among rocky outcrops and verdant valleys, lie the enigmatic remains of the Nuragic sacred wells, a network of intricately constructed stone foundations that speak of ritual, engineering, and human devotion. At first glance, these wells appear as simple depressions lined with carefully arranged stones, yet a closer inspection reveals geometric precision, monumental masonry, and a spiritual sophistication that continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. The foundations hint at a people who were as attuned to the rhythms of water and sky as they were to stone and earth. These sacred wells, part of the Nuragic civilization which flourished in Sardinia from approximately 1800 BCE to 238 BCE, were not mere utilitarian constructions. Their primary function appears ceremonial, intended to honor water as both a life-giving and purifying force. Many are circular, their interiors lined with massive, perfectly fitted basalt stones, forming subterranean chambers that descend deep below the surface. The precision with which these stones were shaped and placed suggests an advanced understanding of engineering, geometry, and durability. But how did the Nuragic builders achieve such meticulous alignment without metal tools of the type we take for granted today? And why was water, so common yet so essential, elevated to sacred status through such laborious construction? The architectural sophistication is striking. Some wells feature corbelled vaults, inward-sloping walls, and carefully positioned entrance corridors, designed to channel light, sound, and perhaps ritual procession. At certain times of the year, sunlight penetrates the shafts and illuminates the inner chambers, hinting at intentional alignment with solar or lunar cycles. Could these alignments indicate calendrical observation, ritual marking of seasonal changes, or a symbolic connection to celestial cycles? And if so, how did these early engineers combine spiritual, astronomical, and hydraulic knowledge to create structures that were both practical and profoundly symbolic? Archaeological investigation reveals that these wells were often part of larger sacred precincts, including nearby temples, stone towers known as nurags, and open spaces likely used for gathering. Pottery shards, votive deposits, and evidence of burning suggest repeated ceremonial activity over centuries. Yet despite these findings, many mysteries endure. Were these sacred wells purely ritual spaces, or did they serve practical functions in combination with ceremonial purpose? Did the placement of wells across Sardinia reflect social or political boundaries, sacred geography, or cosmological mapping? And why are some wells more elaborately constructed than others, as if the skill and effort invested in each were designed to convey hierarchy, importance, or spiritual potency? The Nuragic people's relationship with water is central to the mystery. Water is universal and essential, yet its sanctification through monumental stonework suggests a worldview in which natural forces were inseparable from human experience and spiritual practice. The descent into the well's chamber is both literal and symbolic. The deeper one goes, the more removed from the surface world, the more profound the connection to life, death, and renewal. How did participants in these rituals perceive their descent? Was it an initiation, a pilgrimage, or a symbolic passage between realms? And how did the physical experience of entering, hearing, and seeing within these chambers shape human perception and spiritual understanding? The construction of the wells also reveals sophisticated social organization. Moving massive stones, shaping them to precise dimensions, and coordinating labor to create subterranean chambers would have required leadership, planning, and knowledge transfer across generations. How was this knowledge preserved and transmitted without written language? Were certain families, guilds, or priestly classes responsible for the construction and maintenance of sacred wells? And how did participation in these monumental projects reinforce community identity, cohesion, and spiritual hierarchy? The surrounding landscapes deepen the mystery. Many wells are situated near springs, rivers, or elevated vantage points overlooking valleys and plains. Their placement is deliberate, suggesting an understanding of both terrain and symbolic geography. Did these locations serve as focal points for regional communities, pilgrimage sites, or markers of sacred territory? And what guided the Nuragic choice of placement? Practical access to water, spiritual resonance, celestial alignment, or a combination of these factors? Artifacts discovered within and near the wells provide tantalizing hints, yet offer no definitive answers. Fragments of pottery, carved stones, and burnt offerings suggest ritual activity, but the precise meaning of these acts remains speculative. Were offerings intended to ensure fertility, secure protection from drought, honor ancestors, or maintain cosmic balance? And why did some wells receive repeated attention over centuries, while others fell into disuse or were abandoned, as if their spiritual potency was bound to time, circumstance, or social memory? Even the form of the wells carries symbolic weight. Circular chambers, descending corridors, and narrow entrances all suggest intentionality, guiding movement, perception, and experience. The act of entering the well, descending into shadow, feeling the cool stone, perhaps witnessing the shaft illuminated by a rare shaft of light, creates a sensory and spiritual experience that must have been deeply meaningful. How did such design affect those who performed rituals there? And what hidden knowledge, cultural memory, or spiritual understanding is encoded in the precise geometry and placement of the stones? Walking among the Nuragic sacred wells today, one is struck by both the endurance and the mystery of the structures. The stones have weathered centuries of wind, rain, and human interaction, yet their alignment, scale, and craftsmanship remain intact, silently conveying purpose and devotion. The wells evoke questions about human ingenuity, spiritual belief, and social organization. How did these early Sardinian communities conceptualize life, death, and the forces that governed their existence? And what knowledge, wisdom, or ritual practice, encoded in stone and water, lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be rediscovered? The sacred wells also challenge modern assumptions about prehistoric societies. They were not only capable of monumental engineering, but also of integrating spiritual practice, communal organization, and natural observation in a way that resonates across millennia. What insights into human cognition, belief systems, and ritual practice can be gleaned from these structures? And how much remains beyond our reach, locked within their geometry, placement, and the silent rituals of a people long gone? As the sun casts long shadows across the terraces and chambers of the wells today, the Nuragic sacred foundations speak of both continuity and enigma. They are monuments to human ingenuity and devotion, yet they guard their deepest secrets. They remind us that water, stone, and landscape can hold meaning far beyond the functional, connecting the living with ancestors, the earthly with the cosmic. And they pose a question that remains unanswered. What truths, practices, and knowledge lie submerged in these subterranean chambers, preserved for thousands of years, waiting for those willing to descend, observe, and imagine across time? From the sun-washed stones and sacred waters of Sardinia, our journey arcs eastward, across the Mediterranean and the Arabian Peninsula to the stark desert landscapes of Oman. Amid rolling sand dunes, rocky outcrops, and valleys carved by time, lie some of the most enigmatic and meticulously constructed burial complexes of the ancient world. The necropolises of Bat, Al-Khutm, and Al-Ayn. At first glance, they appear as simple clusters of stone tombs dotting the arid terrain. Yet each monument, each circular tomb, each carefully placed alignment carries with it centuries of human intention, ritual, and architectural sophistication. Approaching these sites, one cannot help but sense the presence of the past, a silent dialogue etched in stone and sand. The necropolises date to the 3rd millennium BCE, part of Oman's Bronze Age cultural horizon, and are characterized by thousands of circular tombs, some towering over 3 meters in diameter. Constructed from massive stones set with precision, they are clustered in patterns that suggest more than casual placement. Each tomb was built to endure the harsh desert climate, to stand as a permanent monument to the deceased, and perhaps to serve as a focal point for communal memory. But why choose this remote desert landscape, and what beliefs, cosmologies, or ancestral traditions drove the construction of tombs in such deliberate geometries? The architecture is both practical and mysterious. Many tombs are circular, some subcircular, with corbelled interiors, while others feature chambers reached through narrow corridors. Stones were fitted with care, often without mortar, forming enduring structures that resist erosion and collapse. Was this construction guided solely by function, to protect the dead? Or did the circular form carry symbolic meaning, representing cycles of life, death, and the cosmos? And how did the builders manage to move and position such stones with only rudimentary tools, coordinating labor in an environment that offered both scarcity and challenge? Archaeological evidence provides tantalizing clues. Excavations have uncovered human remains, pottery, stone tools, and occasional ornaments, suggesting complex ritual practices and social organization. Yet many aspects remain unresolved. Why do some tombs contain multiple individuals, while others appear to have been reserved for single burials? Were these differences determined by family, status, or ritual significance? And what dictated the placement of tombs across the landscape? Practical terrain considerations, celestial alignments, social or clan organization, or a combination of these factors? The placement of the necropolises themselves is striking. Many tombs occupy elevated terraces, overlooking valleys or wadis, as if marking both territory and spiritual significance. In some locations, clusters of tombs form patterns that hint at intentional geometry, lines, or alignments with distant hills, or the rising and setting sun during solstices. Could these patterns indicate a symbolic or cosmological system, encoding celestial knowledge, ancestral veneration, or ritual movement? And if so, how much of this knowledge was intentionally preserved, and how much has been lost to the passage of millennia? The scale and coordination of the tombs suggest an advanced degree of social organization. Constructing, shaping, and arranging the stones for thousands of tombs would have required knowledge transfer, planning, and collective effort. Who oversaw these monumental projects? Were there specialists, priests, architects, or master builders who directed the construction, or was it a communal endeavor driven by shared belief and responsibility? And how did these communal rituals reinforce social cohesion, hierarchy, or identity within the ancient societies of Oman? Inside the tombs, human remains offer further intrigue. Bodies were often laid in a flexed position, accompanied by pottery vessels, beads, and tools, implying beliefs in an afterlife or continued spiritual presence. Yet patterns vary widely between sites and even within individual necropolises, raising questions about ritual standardization. Were certain practices restricted to elites or spiritual leaders? Did the objects placed with the deceased serve as practical tools for the next world, symbolic offerings, or markers of personal or familial identity? And how might these burial customs reflect broader Bronze Age cosmologies that remain largely invisible to modern observers? The necropolises also challenge assumptions about desert communities. Despite harsh conditions, these societies created enduring monuments demonstrating technical skill, ritual sophistication, and long-term planning. The builders of Bat, Al-Khutm, and Al-Ayn not only contended with environmental challenges, but also encoded social, spiritual, and possibly astronomical knowledge into their constructions. What insights might these sites provide about human ingenuity, adaptability, and the integration of daily life with sacred practice? And how did the interplay of environment, ritual, and architecture shape the worldview of these ancient peoples? Walking among the tombs today, the landscape evokes both silence and mystery. The weight of the stones, the deliberate arrangement of the clusters, and the horizon-stretched vistas create a sense of ritualized space where the living engaged with the dead and the cosmos. The necropolises functioned as both markers of human presence and as a bridge between earthly life and the unknown beyond. How did participants perceive their relationship with these tombs? Were they sites of mourning, celebration, initiation, or celestial observance? And what experiences, visual, auditory, or tactile, were intended as part of the interaction with these sacred spaces? Even the distribution of tombs across the landscape raises questions. Some clusters are densely packed, forming almost city-like configurations, while others are isolated. Were these differences intentional, reflecting variations in clan affiliation, ritual hierarchy, or seasonal use? And how might the placement of tombs have guided movement, ritual processions, or the perception of sacred space within the desert? Artifacts and skeletal analysis offer partial insight, but also deepen the mystery. Pottery styles vary, as do the orientations of burials, suggesting a culture capable of nuanced ritual expression and flexible social structures. Yet many questions remain unanswered. How did these ancient communities conceptualize death, ancestry, and spiritual continuity? Were there oral traditions, myths, or teachings guiding the construction and use of the tombs? And what knowledge, once preserved in action, ceremony, and spatial experience, has been irrevocably lost? Approaching the site at dawn or dusk, the tombs take on a striking visual resonance. Shadows stretch across circular chambers, while sunlight highlights the precision of stonework, creating a play of light and shadow that may have been integral to ritual practice. Could the builders have designed the tombs to interact with the shifting sun and moon, creating temporal markers, signaling ceremonial times, or symbolizing cosmic order? And if so, how deeply was astronomical observation integrated with ritual life and societal organization? Bat, Al-Khutm, and Al-Ayn are not merely burial sites. They are monumental expressions of human intention, creativity, and spirituality. They reveal societies that integrated architecture, ritual, landscape, and cosmology in ways that continue to provoke wonder. Yet, despite centuries of study, the full scope of meaning remains elusive. What stories, beliefs, and knowledge remain preserved in the placement, construction, and alignment of these tombs? And how might careful observation, imagination, and reflection allow modern observers to glimpse the worldview of a people whose hands shaped stone and whose rituals shaped the desert itself? As the desert wind sweeps across the ancient tombs, carrying grains of sand through corridors, across capstones, and over terraces, the necropolises of Bat, Al-Khutm, and Al-Ayn stand in silent testimony. They remind us that human history is preserved not only in objects, but in the deliberate shaping of landscape, stone, and experience. And they pose a question that endures across millennia. What secrets, rituals, and knowledge are still hidden in these sacred stones, waiting for those willing to observe with patience, curiosity, and awe? From the stark, wind-swept deserts and ceremonial necropolises of Oman, our journey carries us northward, across seas and the jagged coasts of the North Atlantic to the remote and rugged archipelago of Shetland. Amid the low rolling hills and the serene expanse of Clickimin Loch lies a monument that has long intrigued archaeologists and historians alike: the Broch of Clickimin. At first glance, it may appear as a modest mound of weathered stones, its circular form blending with the landscape. Yet as the morning light illuminates its concentric walls, the meticulous engineering, deliberate construction, and enduring presence of the structure become unmistakable. It is a tower, a fortress, a home, and a statement, a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of a people whose names and stories have largely vanished into time. The Broch of Clickimin belongs to the Iron Age broch tradition of northern Scotland, with construction estimated between 200 BCE and 100 CE. Brochs are circular, dry stone towers, typically consisting of thick, double-skinned walls enclosing a hollow interior chamber, sometimes rising to impressive heights. Clickimin is unique not only for the scale of its surviving foundations, but also for the complex arrangement of its surrounding fortifications. A massive stone rampart envelops the broch, creating a compound that suggests a deliberate blending of habitation, defense, and possibly ceremonial space. Standing here, one can sense the careful planning required to integrate a human-built structure with the contours of the land and the fluctuating tides of the loch. Walking along the outer rampart, it becomes clear that this was more than a mere defensive installation. The broch's position at the edge of the loch afforded strategic advantage, providing visibility across the water and surrounding land. Yet it also hints at a symbolic function. The water itself may have represented a boundary, a liminal space between the settled world and the unknown beyond. Did the builders intend for their home to be both practical and symbolic, to communicate power and presence across the landscape? How did the proximity of the loch shape daily life, ritual practices, or even the perception of the broch by its contemporaries? The architecture of the broch demonstrates an astonishing understanding of engineering and spatial design. The inner walls are constructed with precisely fitted stones, forming corridors, stairways, and chambers within the thickness of the walls themselves. Some staircases spiral upward through the walls, while small recesses and niches suggest spaces for storage, ritual, or domestic activity. How did Iron Age builders lift and maneuver these heavy stones with only primitive tools? And what principles, structural, aesthetic, or symbolic, guided the placement of each stone to ensure that the tower would endure centuries of wind, frost, and erosion? Excavations reveal the broch's multifaceted use. Hearths and food storage areas indicate domestic activity. Remnants of tools, pottery, and personal objects hint at craft and trade. Evidence of animal bones suggests both subsistence and ceremonial consumption. Yet, while these finds illuminate the everyday, they also deepen the mystery. Why are certain areas of the broch more heavily used than others? Do differences in space usage reveal social hierarchy, ritual specialization, or family organization? And how did inhabitants reconcile the dual imperatives of defense and domesticity within such a confined and fortified space? The broch's outer defenses further suggest a community acutely aware of potential threats. The rampart surrounding Clickimin is substantial, constructed from massive stones arranged with care, and appears to have enclosed both the tower and the surrounding courtyard or working area. This combination of broch and rampart implies that the site was both a home and a fortress, a place where daily life unfolded under the constant awareness of possible conflict. But what were the threats these structures were designed to guard against? Raiding parties from neighboring communities? Rival chieftains seeking dominance? Or perhaps the very forces of nature, storms, tidal surges, and the relentless north winds? The broader landscape also plays a crucial role in understanding the site. Clickimin Loch is part of a network of coastal waterways and fertile lands that would have supported Iron Age communities in Shetland. The broch's position not only allowed surveillance of land and water, but may also have held ritual significance. Water has long been associated with life, death, and spiritual transition. Could the loch have functioned as a symbolic boundary, a conduit for ceremonial practice, or a marker of territory and authority? And how did the natural environment, from tides to seasonal light, shape both the practical and spiritual dimensions of broch life? Comparisons with other brochs across northern Scotland further deepen the intrigue. Brochs vary in size, design, and complexity, yet all exhibit a remarkable combination of domestic, defensive, and possibly symbolic functions. Clickimin's double rampart and integration with the loch, however, suggest particular attention to both status and survival. Did this broch represent a seat of regional power, a hub of trade, or a communal sanctuary? And how did the decisions of its builders regarding placement, form, and scale reflect a worldview in which architecture, authority, and landscape were inseparable? Within the broch, traces of human activity hint at both continuity and ritual. Evidence of repeated habitation, hearths, and storage suggests that life unfolded here over decades, perhaps generations. Yet certain architectural features, the thick walls, narrow entrances, and strategic recesses, imply a consciousness of threat and a desire for protection. Were these spaces also used for ceremonial purposes, rites of passage, or communication with the spiritual realm? And if so, what rituals might have accompanied the everyday, invisible now to us, but etched into the spatial logic of the stone structure? The Broch of Clickimin is more than an architectural achievement. It is a record of human adaptability, social complexity, and imagination. Its survival across 2 millennia invites reflection on the society that built it, their engineering skills, their knowledge of stone and earth, and their capacity to create structures that endure both physical and temporal challenges. How did the inhabitants transmit knowledge of construction techniques, social hierarchy, and ritual significance across generations? And what elements of their culture, preserved in stone and memory, remain hidden beneath the weathered surfaces and the passage of centuries. Walking among the remains today, the Broch commands attention. The interplay of light and shadow within the interior chambers, the weight of the stones, and the position of the tower against the vast northern sky create an immersive experience. One can almost imagine the inhabitants moving through the space, conducting daily chores, tending fires, storing grain, or performing rites that marked time, season, and status. What stories unfolded within these walls? What fears, aspirations, and ceremonies shaped the lives of those who lived under the shadow of the Broch? And how much of their understanding of the world, encoded in the stone, is lost to us, leaving only silent testimony? Even the stones themselves speak of intention. The circular design, the spiral stairways, the careful alignment of entrances, and the positioning of the Broch within the landscape suggest an awareness of both function and symbolism. Could the tower have been aligned with celestial events, marking solstices or equinoxes? Were the walls designed to create acoustic or visual effects during rituals or gatherings? And if so, what knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and human perception did the builders possess, encoded into the very fabric of the structure? The Broch of Clickimin also challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric societies. These were communities capable of organizing labor, managing resources, and creating monumental architecture. Yet they also appear to have embedded spiritual, social, and symbolic meaning within their constructions. How did the intersection of daily life, defense, and ritual influence community cohesion? And what lessons about resilience, ingenuity, and the human desire to leave a lasting mark might we draw from these silent stones? As the wind sweeps across the promontory and ripples across the loch, the Broch stands in quiet endurance, a sentinel of time and human endeavor. It invites us to consider not only the mechanics of its construction, but also the minds, beliefs, and lives of those who created it. What secrets remain buried in the stones, hidden in the corridors, or encoded in the placement of the tower itself? And what might modern observers, standing on the threshold of 2 millennia, still discover about the culture, skill, and imagination that gave rise to the Broch of Clickimin? Here, as elsewhere in our journey through the world's most perplexing ancient monuments, we are reminded that human ingenuity is timeless, and that even in silence, stone can speak. Yet the full story of Clickimin remains elusive, preserved in its weathered walls, in its spiral stairs, and in the loch's reflective waters. What truths, lost to time yet preserved in structure, await those willing to observe with patience, curiosity, and reverence? And how might the Broch continue to challenge our understanding of the past, inviting us to ponder the remarkable blend of survival, ceremony, and artistry embedded in Iron Age Scotland? From the windswept shores and formidable towers of northern Scotland, our journey now traces southward, along rugged coastlines and moorland ridges into the heart of Cornwall. Here, nestled amid rolling hills and the patchwork of ancient fields, stands a mysterious collection of stone formations known collectively as the Men-an-Tol. Unlike the imposing vertical grandeur of the Broch of Clickimin, these stones are smaller, more intimate, yet no less enigmatic. The central feature, a circular hold stone, is flanked by a series of upright and fallen stones that seem to mark deliberate space, as if the land itself has been subtly sculpted to host both human and cosmic purpose. As the mist drifts across the moor, the stones emerge like sentinels from another age, their origin, purpose, and meaning remaining largely obscured by millennia. The Men-an-Tol lesser stones, a group distinct from the more prominent hold stone, are spread across the surrounding fields. Each stone is carefully positioned, creating a subtle rhythm in the landscape that is immediately perceptible yet difficult to quantify. Archaeologists date these stones to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, roughly 4,000 to 3,500 years ago, situating them within a broader cultural context of megalithic activity in southwestern Britain. Yet, despite extensive study, their precise function remains unresolved. Were they ceremonial markers, territorial delineations, or part of a more complex ritual landscape designed to interact with both human movement and natural phenomena? A close inspection of the stones reveals the remarkable care in their selection and placement. Unlike haphazard field stones or simple boundary markers, these rocks appear intentionally chosen for shape, height, and texture. Some lean slightly, others stand upright, while a few are partially buried, suggesting deliberate positioning to achieve a particular visual or spatial effect. Could these alignments have been designed to guide processions or frame sightlines to celestial events, such as solstices, equinoxes, or lunar maxima? And if so, what knowledge of astronomy and geometry did these Neolithic builders possess, encoded subtly yet deliberately into the arrangement of stone? The surrounding landscape reinforces the sense of intentionality. Rolling hills, streams, and valleys interact with the stones to create a spatial choreography. From certain angles, the stones frame distant hills or align with horizon features. In other perspectives, they punctuate the eye line as one moves across the terrain. It is tempting to imagine the builders envisioning the stones not as isolated objects, but as components of a dynamic landscape meant to be experienced in motion. What rituals, rites, or observances might have accompanied this movement across the moor? Were these stones thresholds, markers of liminality, or silent witnesses to ceremonies long forgotten? The stone's scale and subtlety make them particularly intriguing. Unlike the imposing dolmens or massive henge structures, the Men-an-Tol lesser stones are human-scaled, allowing interaction, touch, and passage. The central hold stone, with its circular aperture, is surrounded by these smaller stones, suggesting a network of relational significance. Did the act of passing through, circling, or touching these stones carry symbolic or transformative power? Folklore collected in later centuries speaks of healing, fertility, and protective properties associated with the hold stone. But how much of this reflects continuity of ancient belief, and how much is the projection of later imagination onto a landscape already rich with mystery? Archaeological study adds another layer of complexity. Excavations near the site reveal minimal evidence of habitation, pottery, or domestic activity. Unlike nearby settlements, these stones seem purpose-built for observation, ritual, or marking. Yet the absence of domestic debris does not diminish their significance. It amplifies the sense of intentional separation, suggesting that these sites were conceived as liminal spaces, set apart from the rhythms of ordinary life. Were these stones intended for communal gatherings, solitary pilgrimage, or secretive ritual? And how did their placement within the natural contours of the land shape both perception and experience? The alignment of the lesser stones has prompted speculation and study. Some researchers note potential correlations with lunar cycles, solar risings, or seasonal light and shadow effects. Could these stones have functioned as an astronomical calendar, guiding agricultural or ritual activities in the Bronze Age? Or was the alignment symbolic rather than functional, a reflection of a cosmology in which sky, land, and human action were inseparable? If so, what worldview might have inspired such a meticulous integration of natural and constructed space? Interaction with the stones continues to provoke curiosity. Modern visitors often attempt to recreate ancient rituals, passing through the hold stone, measuring alignments, or observing the movement of light across the moor. While contemporary interpretations can never fully reconstruct Bronze Age experience, the stone's scale and form suggest they were meant to be touched, seen from multiple perspectives, and moved around. How did the original builders intend for human presence to interact with the landscape? Did they anticipate the dynamic play of light and shadow, the shifting perception of form, or the kinesthetic experience of moving among the stones. The broader cultural context also deepens the mystery. The Men-an-Tol lies within a region rich in megalithic monuments. Standing stones, henges, burial mounds, and stone rows pepper the surrounding landscape. Yet the stones here are distinct in their scale and intimacy. Could they represent a complementary function within this ritual network, perhaps acting as thresholds, markers of processional pathways, or focal points for specific ceremonies? And how might these lesser stones have interacted with larger monuments, with settlements, or with natural features such as rivers, hills, and the horizon? Even the stones themselves hold stories that transcend time. Weathered and etched with lichen, their surfaces record millennia of exposure to wind, rain, and frost, preserving a tactile history that invites both reverence and contemplation. Their endurance speaks to the skill of their makers, yet also raises questions. How did Bronze Age communities transport, erect, and position these stones with precision and care? Was the construction purely functional, symbolic, or a combination of both? And what social or spiritual structures enabled this remarkable coordination of labor, knowledge, and intention? The Men-an-Tol lesser stones also highlight a recurring theme in ancient monuments: the interplay of human presence, landscape, and spiritual imagination. Unlike settlements or fortifications, these stones were not built to provide shelter, defense, or immediate utility. They exist primarily as markers of belief, observation, or human intention within a broader cosmological or territorial framework. What prompted the Neolithic and Bronze Age inhabitants of Cornwall to invest energy, planning, and ritual significance into these markers? And how did these stones function as nodes of social memory, guiding communal identity, ancestry, and ritual practice over generations? Even today, the stones inspire questions rather than answers. Passing among them, one experiences both scale and intimacy, isolation and connection, past and present. The subtle arrangement of stone, the relationship to topography, and the interplay with light create an immersive experience that invites reflection on human creativity, perception, and ritual. How did these ancient builders conceive of space, movement, and experience? Were the stones primarily symbolic, practical, or transformative? And what knowledge, encoded in alignment, scale, and placement, has been lost to time, leaving only suggestion and shadow? As the wind sweeps across the moor, rustling grass against stone, one can almost imagine Bronze Age participants moving deliberately among the lesser stones, performing acts of devotion, observation, or initiation. Each stone may have marked a pause, a threshold, or a site of reflection, connecting human life with the cycles of sun, moon, and landscape. And yet, despite centuries of observation, excavation, and study, the purpose of the Men-an-Tol lesser stones remains elusive. What exactly did they signify to the people who built them? How did they structure thought, movement, and belief? And what layers of cultural knowledge lie hidden in their quiet, enduring presence? The Men-an-Tol lesser stones stand as a reminder that not all monuments are monumental in size. Some are monumental in subtlety, intention, and human experience. They challenge modern observers to look carefully, to question assumptions, and to consider the interplay of human effort, landscape, and spiritual imagination. What might we learn if we could truly see the stones as their builders did, part of a living, moving landscape imbued with meaning, ritual, and cosmic awareness? And how might these quiet markers reshape our understanding of Bronze Age life, belief, and the ways humans have long sought to engage with the world around them? As the sun sets over the moor, the Men-an-Tol lesser stones remain, weathered, deliberate, and quietly mysterious. They remind us that ancient secrets are often found not in grand monuments, but in subtle, enduring forms. And as we walk away, one question persists. What forgotten knowledge still lies hidden within these stones, waiting to be understood? From the windswept moors and megalithic formations of Cornwall, our journey turns southeast, tracing the sun across the western Mediterranean to the balmy shores of Minorca in the Balearic Islands. Here, amid fields of low scrub and rolling limestone hills, stands a monument of enigmatic endurance, the Naveta des Tudons. Its imposing form rises from the landscape like a stone vessel turned on its side, a structure so distinctive that it has captured the imagination of archaeologists, historians, and travelers for centuries. Unlike the subtle relational stones of Men-an-Tol or the monumental dry stone broches of northern Scotland, Naveta des Tudons commands attention through sheer scale, architectural ingenuity, and the mystery that has clung to it for millennia. The Navetas, structures unique to Minorca, are megalithic tombs constructed during the Late Bronze Age, roughly between 1500 and 1000 BCE. Des Tudons is the most famous and best preserved example, often described as a stone ship or stone coffin due to its elongated rectangular form capped with a corbelled roof. Its walls, meticulously assembled from massive limestone blocks, taper inward as they rise, culminating in a thick, stone-built ceiling that has withstood centuries of wind, rain, and human interference. Standing before it, one cannot help but wonder, who conceived this structure, and why devote so much effort, precision, and communal labor to create a tomb so extraordinary in both design and execution? Approaching the Naveta des Tudons, its scale becomes immediately apparent. The structure measures roughly 14 meters in length, 6 meters in width, and nearly 4 meters in height, dimensions that dwarf most contemporary tombs of the Mediterranean Bronze Age. Its corbelled roof, formed by overlapping stones in successive layers, demonstrates sophisticated engineering, a technique capable of spanning interior space without the use of timber or mortar, and one that would require careful planning and knowledge of weight distribution. How did these ancient builders, working without advanced machinery or formal architectural training, achieve such precision? What lessons in geometry, load-bearing, and communal construction were passed down to make such a feat possible? The interior, revealed through careful excavation, adds layers to the mystery. Human skeletal remains, often disarticulated and layered, suggest that the Naveta functioned as a collective tomb. Some estimates suggest that several hundred individuals may have been interred over centuries within this single structure. Accompanying artifacts, including pottery, bone tools, and ornamental objects, hint at ritual significance, yet do not fully explain the cosmology behind the tomb's construction. Was the placement of bodies dictated by social hierarchy, kinship, or ritual sequence? And how did repeated interment practices shape communal memory, identity, and reverence for the dead over generations? The Naveta's design also suggests a deliberate symbolic language. Its long rectangular form contrasts sharply with the circular or oval tombs common elsewhere in Bronze Age Europe. Was this a reflection of a cultural worldview unique to Minorca, one that emphasized linearity, procession, or hierarchy? Could the shape have functioned as a symbolic vessel, a container of souls, or a bridge between the world of the living and the realm beyond? And what knowledge or belief system guided the careful alignment of stones, the tapering of walls, and the construction of a roof capable of enduring for millennia? Archaeological investigation has revealed more mysteries. The entrance to the Naveta, once sealed with stones, allowed for repeated access over time, suggesting ongoing ritual activity rather than a single interment. Yet the absence of direct domestic structures nearby raises questions about the broader context. Was this tomb part of a settlement that has since vanished? Or was it deliberately isolated, designed as a liminal space set apart from daily life? How did the builders perceive the landscape? And what ritual, social, or symbolic imperatives dictated the Nevada's position relative to hills, water sources, or celestial events? The positioning of Nevada des Tudons within the Menorcan landscape is striking. It sits atop a low ridge, overlooking fertile valleys and commanding distant views of the surrounding hills. This location may have served multiple functions: a practical choice for visibility and territorial assertion, a spiritual marker aligned with local cosmology, or a nexus where the living and the dead intersected in ritual observance. Were the builders considering the rising and setting of the sun, the seasonal trajectory of the moon, or other celestial phenomena as part of the tomb's design? Could the Nevada itself have functioned as a calendar, a monument to seasonal cycles, or a guide for agricultural and ceremonial life? The construction of Nevada des Tudons required extraordinary social coordination. The transport, selection, and placement of massive limestone blocks would have necessitated a structured workforce, knowledge of engineering techniques, and the ability to organize labor across extended periods. What social structures enabled such coordination? Were there leaders or specialists directing construction, or was it a communal effort rooted in shared spiritual and cultural imperatives? How did the builders transmit knowledge of construction techniques, ritual significance, and architectural precision across generations without written records? Within the Nevada, evidence of repeated use suggests complex ritual behavior. Skeletal analysis indicates selective placement of remains, sometimes grouped, sometimes individual, often layered. Were these choices deliberate, reflecting belief systems about ancestry, reincarnation, or spiritual guardianship? Did the accompanying artifacts function as offerings, markers of status, or tools for navigating the afterlife? And how much of the Nevada's original symbolic or ritual significance has been lost, leaving modern observers with only fragmentary insight into the intentions of its builders? The enduring presence of Nevada des Tudons continues to evoke awe. Its massive stones, precise construction, and commanding presence create an immersive experience, inviting contemplation of both human ingenuity and spiritual imagination. Unlike settlements or defensive structures, the Nevada exists primarily as a monument to human mortality and ritual practice. How did Bronze Age communities conceptualize the intersection of death, landscape, and communal memory? And how did structures like Nevada des Tudons shape social cohesion, belief systems, and collective identity across centuries? Even the surrounding environment contributes to the Nevada's sense of mystery. Winds sweep across the ridge, casting shifting shadows over stone surfaces. The sun rises and sets in alignment with distant hills, illuminating the entrance or interior in fleeting bursts. Could the builders have deliberately incorporated these effects into ritual timing or spiritual practice? Was light itself an element of ceremony, guiding interaction with the tomb, marking seasons, or symbolizing transition between life and death? And if so, how sophisticated was their understanding of natural cycles and human perception? The Nevada des Tudons also invites reflection on human continuity and creativity. Despite its isolation and the passage of thousands of years, the structure communicates a clear vision of design, purpose, and reverence. Its endurance speaks to a society capable of profound architectural innovation and spiritual expression. Yet, as with so many ancient monuments, questions remain. What drove the specific choices of form, scale, and orientation? How did ritual, cosmology, and practical concern converge in this extraordinary edifice? And what other knowledge, now lost to time, was encoded in the stones, their alignments, and the placement of the dead within? Even today, visitors experience the Nevada as both object and environment. walking around its perimeter, observing the taper of walls, the texture of limestone, and the corbelled interior. One senses the deliberate thought embedded in its creation. It is at once a tomb, a monument, and a stage for human experience, bridging temporal and spatial divides. How might the original builders have intended humans to move through, perceive, and interact with the space? Did they consider the sensory, emotional, and cognitive experience of visitors, participants, or ritual practitioners? The Navata's enduring mystery is amplified by its singularity. While other Bronze Age tombs exist throughout the Balearics, the form and precision of Navata des Tudons are unparalleled. Could it represent the pinnacle of a cultural tradition, a site of elite ritual significance, or a community-wide focus of ancestral reverence? And how did its design influence subsequent monuments, settlement patterns, or ritual landscapes on Menorca and beyond? As the sun dips low behind limestone hills, casting long shadows across the ridges and valleys, Navata des Tudons stands as a testament to human ingenuity, spiritual imagination, and the enduring desire to mark existence beyond a single lifetime. Its stones whisper of labor, belief, and vision. Its design hints at knowledge both practical and symbolic, and its presence challenges modern observers to engage with a culture that communicated through space, stone, and ritual rather than written language. What truths, intentions, and knowledge remain encoded in this monument? And what might careful observation, imagination, and reverence reveal about the people who conceived, built, and used Navata des Tudons across the span of centuries? Navata des Tudons hints at hidden Bronze Age secrets of life and death.